Good day, lovely viewers. Welcome to Super Harry. We have an exciting story lined up for you today. What if Harry's eyes turned into Sharingan at age 7 and he saw 42 genjutsu layers Dumbledore placed on everyone at Hogwarts? Your engagement means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow and bring you more amazing content. Without wasting any time, let's start. Chapter 1. The Crimson Awakening. Harry Potter slammed against the wall of his cupboard under the stairs, holding back tears as Uncle Vernon locked the door. His 7-year-old body ached from the shove, punishment for supposedly turning his teacher's hair blue. Wasn't his fault. Never was. But they didn't care. You'll stay there until you learn some respect, boy. Vernon bellowed through the thin door. Harry curled into a ball on his threadbare mattress, the familiar feeling of injustice burning in his chest. Something felt different this time though. The pain wasn't just physical, it was like pressure building behind his eyes. "I didn't do anything," he whispered, pressing his palms against his eyelids. The pressure increased, spiking suddenly into sharp, stabbing pain. Harry bit his lip to keep from crying out, knowing it would only bring more trouble. The pain crescendoed until Harry couldn't hold back a gasp. Then, abruptly, it stopped. When he opened his eyes, the world had changed forever. The dim cupboard looked sharper, clearer. Harry could make out details in the darkness he'd never noticed before, the precise pattern of wood grain in the walls, the exact weave of his thin blanket. But that wasn't what made him freeze in shock. Everything was surrounded by faint, colored threads of something. Energy. Light. They pulsed and flowed around objects like invisible rivers. And when he looked at the locked door, he could see threads running through it, connecting to something outside. "What's happening?" Harry whispered, scrambling for the cracked mirror shard he kept hidden under his mattress. When he angled it toward his face, he nearly dropped it in shock. His eyes, his ordinary green eyes that people always said looked like his mother's, had transformed. The irises glowed red, with a single black tomo pattern swirling around each pupil. Harry blinked rapidly, expecting the strange vision to disappear. It didn't. Instead, he noticed more details. The energy threads had patterns, intentions. Some seemed protective, others binding. Some were fading, others strong. Most disturbing of all, he realized he could see through the door as if it were transparent. Aunt Petunia stood in the kitchen, cooking dinner. But something was wrong with how she moved, like she was following invisible guidelines, her actions stiff and predetermined. Harry concentrated, and suddenly he could see a complex web of energy surrounding her, controlling her movements like a puppet. Similar threads extended throughout the house, around Uncle Vernon watching television, around Dudley playing upstairs. Fear seized Harry's heart. What was happening? Was he going crazy? He squeezed his eyes shut, willing the strange vision to go away. When he opened them again, everything was normal, or what passed for normal in the Dursley household. His reflection showed his regular green eyes. Harry exhaled in relief, but curiosity quickly replaced fear. He concentrated again, focusing on that strange pressure behind his eyes. The sensation returned, milder this time, and his vision shifted once more. The red eyes. The swirling tomo. The visible energy. "I can control it," he whispered, switching back and forth a few times. Each transition became smoother, the pain lessening each time until it was just a warm tingle. That night, locked in his cupboard without dinner, Harry practiced. Turn it on. Turn it off. See the energy threads. Follow them to their sources. By morning, he discovered something incredible. When the strange eyes were activated, he could influence the threads. With careful concentration, he could reach out and gently tug on the energy surrounding his cupboard door. The lock clicked open. Harry froze, waiting for the Dursleys to come running, but the house remained quiet in the early dawn. Heart pounding, he slipped out and made his way to the kitchen. With his normal eyes, everything looked ordinary. With his red eyes activated, he saw the threads of energy around the refrigerator, threads designed to alert his aunt if he took food. Harry reached out mentally, carefully moving the threads aside without breaking them. He grabbed an apple and some cheese, then rearranged the threads exactly as they had been. Back in his cupboard, he savored his forbidden breakfast, mind racing with possibilities. Whatever this is, he whispered to himself, I'm not telling anyone. 3 weeks later, Harry sat in the school library during lunch break, hidden behind a large reference book. His strange eyes, which he'd started calling his special sight, had revealed something disturbing about his school. Just like at the Dursleys, there were energy threads everywhere, controlling things, hiding things. Most troubling were the threads around specific people, teachers who sometimes looked at him with momentary concern before their eyes glazed over and they walked away. Harry had experimentally tugged on those threads once, and the teacher had blinked in confusion, looked at Harry's too small clothes and thin frame with alarm, and started toward him, only to abruptly turn away when the thread snapped back into place. Someone was making sure no one helped him. The library door opened, and Harry instinctively deactivated his special sight. A man he'd never seen before entered, tall, with short dark hair and a long coat despite the warm weather. The stranger's eyes scanned the room and locked directly on Harry's hiding spot. Harry ducked lower behind his book, but the man walked straight to his table. Mind if I sit here? The stranger asked, his voice carrying an accent Harry couldn't place. Before Harry could answer, the man was already seated across from him. Harry glanced around for the librarian, but she was nowhere in sight. You've been using them, haven't you? The man said quietly, leaning forward. Your eyes. Ice flooded Harry's veins. He slammed the book shut and made to leave, but the man's next words froze him in place. The Sharingan. Powerful gift. Dangerous, too. Harry slowly sank back into his chair. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled, not unkindly. You don't need to lie to me, Harry Potter. I've been watching you since they awakened. You've done well teaching yourself, but you need proper guidance before you damage your chakra pathways. How do you know my name? Harry demanded, glancing toward the exit. Everyone in our world knows your name. The man extended a hand. You can call me Takashi. I'm here to help you understand what's happening. Harry didn't take the offered hand. What's a Sharingan? The red eyes. The power to see through deceptions and copy techniques. Takashi lowered his voice. Look at me with them. You'll see I'm different from the others. Against his better judgment, Harry activated his special sight, the Sharingan, apparently. Immediately, he saw that Takashi was indeed different. While everyone else he'd observed had controlling threads woven through them, Takashi had none. Instead, a steady blue energy flowed through his body in organized channels. You're not controlled, Harry whispered. Neither are you, not anymore. Takashi glanced at his watch. We don't have much time. The one who placed these illusions will sense your Sharingan if you use it too long in one place. Meet me at the park after school, the hidden bench behind the oak trees. I'll explain everything. With that, Takashi stood and walked away, leaving Harry with more questions than answers. The park was empty when Harry arrived after evading Dudley and his gang. He approached the secluded bench cautiously, activating his Sharingan briefly to scan for danger. Good instinct, came Takashi's voice as he emerged from behind a tree. But you should limit using those eyes until you build your chakra reserves. What exactly are these eyes? Harry asked, sitting on the bench. And what's chakra? Takashi sat beside him. The Sharingan is a rare genetic ability, typically found only in the Uchiha clan. It allows the user to see through illusions, copy techniques, and perceive movement in advance. As for chakra, it's life energy, the combination of physical and spiritual energy that powers abilities like the Sharingan. But I'm not part of any Uchiha clan. No, Takashi agreed. You're not. Which makes your awakening particularly interesting. It's possible one of your ancestors carried the gene. Your mother, Lily Evans, came from a non-magical family, supposedly. Harry perked up. You knew my mother? Not personally. But I know she was powerful, more than the history books say. Takashi looked intently at Harry. Have you noticed the illusions? The control mechanisms? Harry nodded. They're everywhere. Around my house, my school. They make people ignore things, like how the Dursleys treat me. Those illusions are called genjutsu, techniques that manipulate the senses and mind. Someone has placed layers upon layers of them throughout Britain, particularly concentrated around you. But why? Harry asked. Who would do that? That's what we need to discover. Takashi reached into his coat and pulled out a small, worn book. This journal explains the basics of chakra control and how to strengthen your Sharingan without detection. Study it in private. Harry took the book, feeling its weight, both physical and in what it represented. You said our world before. What did you mean? You're a wizard, Harry. Though that term is part of the illusion too, a simplification. True magical ability is far more complex than waving wands and saying Latin phrases. A chill ran down Harry's spine. Magic is real. Very real. And in 4 years you'll be invited to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. By then, you need to be prepared. Takashi stood. I can't stay in one place too long. The illusions have watchers. Practice what's in the book. I'll find you again in a few months. Wait. Harry called as Takashi began to walk away. How did you break free of the illusions? Takashi paused, looking back with a sad smile. I was never under them. I'm not from here originally. But I lost someone important to whoever is maintaining this web of deception. I've been searching for answers for a long time. With that cryptic statement, he disappeared among the trees, leaving Harry clutching the journal and drowning in questions. The next 4 years passed in a blur of secret training and discoveries. Harry learned to manage his Sharingan, using it sparingly and strategically to avoid detection. Takashi visited irregularly, sometimes with months between appearances, teaching Harry the fundamentals of chakra control and helping him understand the complex web of illusions surrounding his life. By his 11th birthday, Harry could detect 42 distinct layers of genjutsu affecting the world around him. Each layer served a different purpose, some altered memories, others limited magical abilities, and some even changed how people perceived reality itself. Most importantly, Harry learned to protect his mind. Takashi taught him to create false thoughts that would appear genuine to anyone trying to read his mind, a critical skill, as they discovered that the architect of the illusions was a powerful Legilimens, able to extract thoughts and memories directly. Remember, Takashi had warned during their last meeting, once you enter Hogwarts, you'll be in the heart of the deception. The headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, is almost certainly involved. Show no sign of your abilities. Trust no one completely. On the morning of his 11th birthday, Harry was unsurprised when the letter arrived, though the Dursleys' panic was genuinely amusing. With his Sharingan, he could see the tracking charms and compulsion spells woven into the parchment, designed to ensure the letter reached him despite any obstacles. When Hagrid arrived to take him shopping for school supplies, Harry maintained his wide-eyed innocent act while secretly analyzing the half-giant with his Sharingan. What he saw troubled him deeply. Hagrid was wrapped in more control threads than anyone Harry had ever seen, thick, pulsing strands that regulated his thoughts, memories, and even his magical ability. The man was essentially a puppet with very little free will remaining. All right there, Harry. Hagrid asked as they entered Diagon Alley. Bit overwhelming, I know. It's amazing, Harry replied truthfully, though not for the reasons Hagrid assumed. With his normal vision, Diagon Alley was indeed impressive, a hidden street filled with magical shops and oddly dressed witches and wizards. But with his Sharingan activated in quick, careful glances, the truth was far more disturbing. The entire alley was a construct of layered illusions. The buildings themselves were different beneath the genjutsu, older, more organic in design, with runes and symbols worked into their foundations that had been covered up or altered. The magic used by shopkeepers was constrained, following artificial patterns that limited its potential. At Gringotts, Harry received his first glimmer of hope. The goblins were different. While they too had control threads woven around them, theirs were fraying, imperfect. Something about goblin physiology or magic resisted the genjutsu. When the goblin banker Griphook leaned close to verify Harry's key, Harry risked activating his Sharingan for a split second. The goblin's eyes widened almost imperceptibly before his professional mask slammed back into place. "Everything seems to be in order, Mr. Potter," Griphook said neutrally, but there was a new tension in his voice. "If you would follow me to your vault." In the privacy of the cart ride, with Hagrid groaning and keeping his eyes firmly shut, Griphook spoke quietly. "The red eyes. Old magic. Thought extinct." Harry tensed. "I don't know what you mean." "Of course not." Griphook's smile showed too many teeth. "Just as we don't notice the threads binding our magic, limiting our access to the deep vaults. Just as we don't resist in small ways. Just as we don't keep records of what was before." Before Harry could respond, the cart screeched to a halt at his vault. Griphook handed him a small key ring with his vault key, his long fingers pressing something else into Harry's palm, a tiny silver coin with unfamiliar markings. "For services rendered in the future, perhaps," the goblin murmured. "Keep it hidden." Harry pocketed the coin quickly, understanding that he'd just made his first potential ally. The rest of the shopping trip was an exercise in restraint. Harry maintained his facade of innocent excitement while cataloging every inconsistency he spotted with his carefully concealed Sharingan glances. At Ollivander's, the wand maker gave Harry pause. Like the goblins, Ollivander seemed partially resistant to the controlling illusions, though in a different way. The threads around him were intact but somehow, accommodated. As if the illusion had been forced to adapt to Ollivander rather than the other way around. "Curious," Ollivander murmured when the Phoenix Feather Wand chose Harry. "Very curious." "Sorry," Harry said, playing his role, "but what's curious?" As Ollivander explained the wand's connection to Voldemort, Harry activated his Sharingan briefly. What he saw made him nearly drop the wand. The old wandmaker's words were true on the surface, but beneath them lay a deeper truth. The Phoenix Feather Wands were far more than they appeared, designed to channel magic in specific, limited ways while suppressing the user's full potential. But most shocking was what Harry saw when he looked at Voldemort's name as Ollivander spoke it. Names had power in the magical world, and with his Sharingan, Harry could see that Voldemort was itself a construct, a fabricated identity overlaid upon someone or something else entirely. "Remember, Mr. Potter," Ollivander said as Harry paid for his wand, "the wand chooses the wizard. But it is the wizard who must master the wand, or remain mastered by it." The emphasis he placed on the words could not be coincidental. Harry left the shop certain of one thing: Ollivander knew more than he was saying. Whether friend or foe remained to be seen. The morning Harry left for Hogwarts, he stood before the mirror in his new bedroom at Privet Drive, one small victory extracted from the Dursleys after Hagrid's visit. He activated his Sharingan, studying the two tomo that now circled each pupil, evidence of his growing power, according to Takashi's journal. "Hogwarts," he whispered to his reflection. "Center of the web." He deactivated the Sharingan, squared his shoulders, and headed downstairs. Uncle Vernon drove him to King's Cross in sullen silence, leaving him between platforms 9 and 10 with a nasty smirk. Harry waited until the Dursleys were gone before activating his Sharingan for a quick scan. Immediately, the illusion concealing platform 9 3/4 became visible, a gateway disguised as a solid wall, surrounded by subtle muggle-repelling charms. More interesting were the threads he could see connecting certain arriving families, creating a pattern that couldn't be coincidental. The Weasley family, loudly discussing Muggles and Platform 9 3/4 in a clear violation of the Statute of Secrecy, were absolutely saturated with control threads. The mother, in particular, had threads extending outward, seeking him. Harry deactivated his Sharingan and moved casually to a position where the Weasley matriarch would spot him. Sure enough, she approached, offering help in an overly friendly manner. "First time at Hogwarts?" "Ron's new too," she said, indicating her youngest son. Harry played along, thanking her for showing him how to access the platform. As they passed through the barrier, he took careful note of which Weasley family members had the most control threads. The mother and youngest son were virtual puppets, while the twins showed signs of partial resistance, similar to the goblins. The older brothers fell somewhere in between. On the train, Harry deliberately chose an empty compartment, curious to see who would be directed to find him. He didn't have to wait long before Ron Weasley appeared at the door. "Anyone sitting there?" Ron asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." A quick Sharingan glance confirmed Harry's suspicion. Ron was being actively directed by the illusion, his path to this specific compartment guided by invisible threads. Harry invited him in, maintaining his facade while evaluating the redhead. The boy himself seemed genuinely friendly, if somewhat shallow in his thinking, a victim rather than a willing participant in the deception. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a bushy-haired girl named Hermione Granger, ostensibly looking for a toad. Harry's Sharingan revealed something fascinating. Unlike the Weasleys, Hermione had relatively few control threads. As a Muggle-born, she had only recently come under the influence of the Genjutsu layers. Most interestingly, her natural magic was fighting back. Harry could see her original magical pathways attempting to reassert themselves against the imposed limitations. With the right nudge, she might break free more easily than others. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one," she said in a bossy sort of voice. "No," Ron replied shortly. Harry smiled at her. "Sorry, haven't seen it. I'm Harry, by the way. Harry Potter." The expected reaction followed, widened eyes, excited chattering about books he was mentioned in. But beneath her programmed response, Harry saw genuine intellectual curiosity. She might make a valuable ally, given time. As the journey continued, they were visited by Draco Malfoy and his cronies. The blonde boy's sneering introduction triggered Ron's anger immediately, but Harry was more interested in what his Sharingan revealed. The Malfoy family had a different type of control thread, older, more complex, and partially interwoven with their own family magic. It seemed some pureblood families had incorporated aspects of the control system into their own power structures. "You'll soon find some wizarding families are better than others, Potter," Malfoy said. "You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." Harry shook the offered hand, ignoring Ron's gasp of betrayal. "I appreciate the offer, Malfoy. I'm new to all this, I'll need to learn from different perspectives." Malfoy looked surprised but pleased. "Smart choice, Potter. We'll talk more at school." After Malfoy left, Ron exploded in indignation. "How could you? Malfoys are dark wizards." "I just didn't see the point in making enemies 5 minutes after meeting someone," Harry replied calmly. "Besides, dark is just a label. I want to understand this world for myself, not take everyone else's word for it." Ron looked confused by this response, his programming struggling to accommodate Harry's deviation from the expected script. Hermione, however, gave Harry a thoughtful look that suggested his words had resonated with something inside her. Hogwarts Castle, when they finally arrived, was breathtaking, and horrifying when viewed with the Sharingan. Harry allowed himself only the briefest of glances as they approached by boat, but what he saw was enough to make his heart pound with a mixture of awe and dread. The castle was alive. Beneath the visible structure lay a living entity of immense magical power, bound and constrained by the most complex web of illusions Harry had ever witnessed. The 42 layers of Genjutsu converged here, drawing power from the castle itself to maintain their hold on the wizarding world. At the center of this web, pulsing like a dark sun, was Albus Dumbledore. Even from a distance, Harry could see the headmaster was both the caster and a component of the grand illusion. Threads flowed from him, through him, and back to him in a self-reinforcing loop that had likely been maintained for decades. "Whoa," Harry whispered, his genuine amazement providing perfect cover for his momentary activation of the Sharingan. Hagrid led them to the castle doors where Professor McGonagall waited. Another quick Sharingan glance showed her to be similar to Ollivander, controlled, but with accommodations that allowed her true personality some expression within strict boundaries. As they waited to enter the Great Hall, Harry sensed a cold presence brushing against his mental shields. Someone was scanning the first year's minds. He reinforced his false thoughts just as the castle ghosts floated through the wall, providing a perfect distraction. The sorting ceremony was a revelation. With carefully timed glances through his Sharingan, Harry saw that the sorting hat was an ancient magical artifact partially independent from the illusion system. The hat contained fragments of the founder's consciousnesses, and while it had been altered by the genjutsu, it retained an awareness of its original purpose. When McGonagall called, "Potter, Harry," a hush fell over the great hall. Harry walked forward calmly, sitting on the stool as the hat was placed on his head. "Well, well," said a small voice in his ear. "What do we have here? A Sharingan user, after all these centuries. How fascinating." Harry tensed. "You can see past my shields. I am designed to see the true nature of students, Mr. Potter. Though my purpose has been adjusted over time, some functions cannot be fully suppressed." The hat sounded almost smug. "Your secret is safe with me. The one who bound me cannot access all that I see." "You know about the illusions then? The genjutsu?" "Indeed. I have watched them grow more complex with each generation. The current headmaster has added 27 layers to the 15 that existed before him. Can you tell me why? What's the purpose?" The hat chuckled dryly. "That would be telling. But I will say this, the one you call Dumbledore believes absolutely in his cause. He sees himself as the shepherd protecting his flock from wolves they cannot comprehend. By controlling them? Limiting their magic? By containing chaos, as he sees it. Now, where to put you? With your eyes and ambition, Slytherin would help you on your path to greatness." Harry considered. "Where would be safest for me to develop my abilities without detection?" Not Slytherin then, too much scrutiny from those partially aware. Ravenclaw would draw attention to your intellect. Hufflepuff might work, but you lack the temperament. Better be Gryffindor." The hat shouted the last word to the hall. As Harry removed it, he heard a final whisper, "The castle remembers its true purpose, beneath the illusions. Seek the chamber where the serpent sleeps." The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers as Harry joined them, the Weasley twins chanting, "We got Potter." He smiled and accepted congratulations while his mind raced. The sorting hat had confirmed his suspicions and provided a new lead, something about a chamber and a serpent. When all the students were sorted, Dumbledore rose to give his welcome speech. Harry risked a longer look with his Sharingan, analyzing the headmaster's magical signature. What he saw was staggering. Dumbledore's power was immense, but at least half of it was permanently dedicated to maintaining the illusion system. The effort had taken a toll. Beneath the grandfatherly exterior, the man's life force was slowly being consumed by his own creation. Most disturbing was what happened when Dumbledore's gaze swept over Harry. The headmaster paused imperceptibly, his magic reaching out to verify the control threads that should be attached to the boy who lived. Harry held his breath, relying on the false constructs he'd built to simulate compliance with the illusion. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as he completed his speech with the nonsensical words, "Nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak." Food appeared on the tables, breaking the tension. Harry exhaled slowly, realizing he'd passed the first test. His deception was holding, for now. The first week of classes provided Harry with the perfect opportunity to map the various control systems affecting Hogwarts. Each professor operated under different constraints, and each subject revealed another facet of how magic had been artificially limited. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall showed how magical theory had been deliberately overcomplicated. With his Sharingan, Harry could see that the elaborate wand movements and incantations were unnecessary constructs, training wheels that actually hindered direct magical manipulation. When Harry successfully transfigured his match into a needle on the first try, McGonagall awarded him points with obvious approval. But when he activated his Sharingan briefly, he saw something else, a flicker of her true personality fighting against programming that demanded she report his unusual aptitude to Dumbledore. Charms with Professor Flitwick was similarly revealing. The diminutive professor had non-human ancestry that gave him partial resistance to the illusions. Harry noticed how Flitwick sometimes taught, by the book, with rigid methodology, then would suddenly shift to more intuitive approaches when the control threads momentarily weakened. Defense against the dark arts was perhaps the most heavily manipulated subject. Professor Quirrell's stuttering incompetence was clearly designed to ensure students gained minimal practical knowledge. But the professor himself presented a puzzle. He was simultaneously controlled by the illusion system and hosting another consciousness that existed partially outside it. When Harry looked at Quirrell with his Sharingan, he could see two distinct magical signatures battling for dominance. Most interesting was potions with Professor Snape. The dour man's first class began with a dramatic speech about brewing glory and stopping death, delivered while he swept around the room in billowing black robes. But when Snape locked eyes with Harry, something extraordinary happened. "Potter!" Snape snapped suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry answered calmly, having read ahead. "The draught of living death, sir." "Where would you look if I told you to find a bezoar?" "The stomach of a goat, sir." "It's a stone that can save you from most poisons." "What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They're the same plant, sir." "Also called aconite." Snape's eyes narrowed. As the class held its breath, expecting punishment despite Harry's correct answers, Harry risked the briefest activation of his Sharingan. What he saw shocked him to his core. Snape's magical signature was fragmented, bound by control threads but fighting them continuously. More incredibly, the man had constructed an elaborate mental architecture similar to Harry's own false thoughts, a deception within the illusion. And in that split second of activated Sharingan, Snape's black eyes reflected red. 1 point to Gryffindor for basic preparation, Snape said curtly, turning away. "Begin your potions. Instructions are on the board." As the class scrambled to obey, Snape moved among the tables, criticizing everyone's technique. When he reached Harry's workstation, he leaned over to inspect the cauldron. Under his breath, so low that only Harry could hear, he murmured, the eyes see-through deception. "Office. Sunday. 8 p.m. alone." Harry's heart raced as he continued brewing, careful not to react visibly. Professor Snape had recognized his Sharingan, and apparently possessed one himself. By the end of the week, Harry had confirmed his initial assessment. Hogwarts was indeed the heart of the illusion system, with Dumbledore as its primary architect and maintainer. But cracks existed in the genjutsu, people with partial resistance, artifacts with original programming still intact, and areas of the castle where the illusions thinned. Most importantly, he had identified potential allies: Hermione Granger, whose natural magic fought the constraints, Fred and George Weasley, whose identical twin bond created interference in the control system, Professor Snape, who somehow possessed Sharingan knowledge, and perhaps others yet to reveal themselves. As Harry prepared for his secret meeting with Snape on Sunday, he reviewed Takashi's journal and practiced transitioning between his normal vision and the Sharingan with minimal chakra expenditure. Whatever came next, he needed to be ready. The game of deception had begun in earnest, and Harry Potter, the boy with the Sharingan eyes, intended to unravel all 42 layers of Dumbledore's grand illusion. Chapter 2, Halls of Deception. Harry arrived at Snape's office Sunday night precisely at 8, his heart hammering against his ribs. He'd spent the weekend observing students and professors with occasional Sharingan glances, building a mental map of Hogwarts control systems. Snape's door swung open before he could knock. "Enter," the potions master commanded, voice clipped. "And close the door behind you." Harry stepped inside the gloomy office, shelves lined with preserved specimens and potions ingredients. Snape stood behind his desk, wand in hand. With a series of rapid movements, he cast multiple spells around the room. "Privacy wards," Snape explained curtly. "Now we can speak freely, but not for long." The headmaster's monitoring charms detect sustained interference. Harry nodded, unsure whether to activate his Sharingan. "Show me," Snape demanded, answering the unspoken question. Harry channeled chakra to his eyes, feeling the now familiar warm tingle as his Sharingan activated. 2 tomos swirled in each crimson iris as he looked directly at Snape. The potions master's face remained impassive, but Harry detected a slight widening of his eyes. 2 tomo already, impressive, Snape murmured. Then, to Harry's shock, Snape's own eyes flashed red momentarily, a perfect Sharingan with 3 tomo in each eye. "You have it too," Harry breathed. "Not exactly." Snape deactivated the ability. "What I possess is a reflection. An echo of the true power, gained through years of acclimacy and exposure to your mother's abilities." "My mother?" Harry leaned forward eagerly. "She had the Sharingan." Snape's expression tightened. "We have limited time, Potter. Listen carefully. The eyes you possess are not of this world, not originally. They arrived here generations ago, through dimensional rifts now sealed by the very illusions you can see through. The 42 genjutsu layers," Harry said. Snape's eyebrow raised slightly. "You've identified all 42 already? Perhaps you are your mother's son after all. What do they do? Why did Dumbledore create them?" "The headmaster didn't create all the layers, he inherited 15 and added 27 more over decades." Snape walked to a shelf, removing a thin vial of silvery liquid. "Some limit magical potential, others alter memory and perception. Together, they maintain what Dumbledore considers a necessary balance, containing chaotic elements that once threatened to destroy our world. But they're controlling everyone. Limiting their magic. For their protection, as he sees it." Snape handed Harry the vial. "This is a memory, my memory, of your mother demonstrating her abilities. Hide it well. View it only with a pensieve, which you'll find on the 7th floor, behind the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy. Walk past it 3 times thinking of what you need." Harry pocketed the vial, mind racing. "Why are you helping me?" Snape's expression darkened. "I made a vow to protect you. More importantly, I've spent 17 years fighting these illusions, ever since your mother showed me the truth. Dumbledore believes he's containing chaos, what he's really doing is preventing magical evolution." "What should I do?" Harry asked. "For now, learn. Observe. Build your strength quietly." Snape checked a pocket watch. "We have 30 seconds before the wards trigger Dumbledore's attention. Remember, trust no one completely, not even me. The illusions can temporarily override even the strongest minds." Harry nodded, deactivating his Sharingan. "One last question, do you know anything about a chamber where a serpent sleeps?" Snape froze momentarily. "Where did you hear that?" "The Sorting Hat mentioned it." A calculating look crossed Snape's face. "The Chamber of Secrets. Supposedly built by Salazar Slytherin. Find the entrance, and you might discover one of the few places in Hogwarts beyond Dumbledore's complete control." He gestured toward the door. "Now go. Our next meeting will appear to be a detention. Melt your cauldron in Thursday's class." Harry slipped out, mind buzzing with new information. His mother had possessed the Sharingan. A hidden room contained a pensieve. The Chamber of Secrets might offer sanctuary from Dumbledore's surveillance. Most importantly, he wasn't alone in his resistance. "Harry, you're doing it again," Hermione whispered during charms class 3 days later. Harry blinked, focusing on her concerned face. Doing what? Staring into space with that strange look. She demonstrated, narrowing her eyes intently. It's the third time today. Harry sighed. He'd been thinking about Snape's revelations while unconsciously channeling chakra toward his eyes, not enough to activate the Sharingan, but apparently enough for Hermione to notice a difference. Sorry, just thinking about. He trailed off as inspiration struck. Hermione's natural resistance to the illusions made her a potential ally, but he needed to approach carefully. Actually, I've been having these weird moments where I see patterns. Like everyone's following invisible scripts. Hermione frowned. What do you mean? Watch Professor Flitwick, Harry suggested quietly as they practiced the levitation charm. Sometimes he starts explaining things differently, more naturally, then suddenly switches back to textbook definitions. Like something's making him stick to a script. Hermione observed the tiny professor for several minutes. Harry watched her face carefully, noting the moment her eyes widened slightly. That's strange, she admitted. I just saw him start to demonstrate a simpler wand movement, then he stopped mid-gesture and went back to the complicated one in the book. I've noticed it everywhere, Harry said. People following patterns they don't seem aware of. Even the way students form friendships, Gryffindors with Gryffindors, Slytherins isolated. Doesn't it seem artificial? Hermione bit her lip, her analytical mind engaging with the puzzle. Like social engineering. But who would do that? And why? Harry shrugged casually while performing a perfect levitation charm. Just a weird theory. Maybe I'm imagining things. No, Hermione said slowly, I don't think you are. I've felt something off since I arrived, but couldn't pin it down. Like the magical world isn't quite fitting together properly. The seed was planted. Harry changed the subject, asking for help with his transfiguration essay, but he could practically see Hermione's mind working on this new problem. Once she started looking for inconsistencies, her natural resistance to the illusions would strengthen. One potential ally in progress. The melted cauldron detention with Snape proved illuminating. Under the guise of making Harry clean the classroom without magic, Snape provided rapid-fire information about the genjutsu layers, speaking in hushed tones while maintaining his outwardly hostile demeanor. Layer 7 prevents wandless magic, Snape explained as he graded papers, appearing to ignore Harry scrubbing the floor. Layer 12 alters perception of magical creatures, making them seem more bestial than sentient. Layer 29 specifically monitors prophecies, ensuring they follow approved narratives. Which layer hides the truth about Voldemort? Harry asked quietly. Snape's quill paused. Layers 4, 16, and 38 work in concert to maintain that particular fiction. The Dark Lord you've been told about is a construct, a bogeyman created to focus fear and justify control. Then who killed my parents? Agents of Chaos, as Dumbledore calls them. Magical revolutionaries who discovered parts of the truth and tried to shatter the illusions. Your mother was one of them, in the end. Snape's voice turned bitter. They were eliminated for coming too close to breaking the system, then recast as victims of the fictional Dark Lord. Harry absorbed this, fury building in his chest. Dumbledore arranged their deaths. Not directly. The system itself generates antibodies against threats. Dumbledore simply allowed it to happen, believing it necessary for the greater good. Snape looked at Harry directly. The illusion made him forget his own direct involvement. That's the insidious power of the genjutsu, even its creator becomes partially controlled by it. How do we break it? Harry asked, gripping the scrub brush tightly. Not easily. Each layer must be identified, understood, and systematically dismantled. But attempting to break them directly alerts the system. Snape stood, approaching Harry's position. Your Sharingan gives you an advantage, you can see the threads, manipulate them subtly without triggering alarms. He pulled a small book from his robes, slipping it beside Harry's cleaning bucket. Basic ocular techniques. Study it only under your bed curtains with silencing charms. Harry nodded, continuing to scrub while Snape returned to his desk. One more thing, Potter. Snape's voice reverted to its usual coldness, though Harry now recognized the performance aspect. The third-floor corridor isn't merely dangerous, it's a test. The obstacles supposedly protecting the Philosopher's Stone are designed to evaluate specific qualities in students who might break through the illusions naturally. A trap. An assessment tool. Dumbledore is collecting exceptional minds. Those who overcome the obstacles receive special attention, and tighter controls. Harry filed this information away. The Philosopher's Stone, another layer of manipulation. October brought increased focus on Harry's plan to build a resistance. He'd made progress with Hermione, subtly pointing out inconsistencies in magical theory that her brilliant mind couldn't ignore. She hadn't fully broken through the illusions, but she'd started questioning established explanations, much to their professor's discomfort. The Weasley twins proved easier to approach. Fred and George's identical magical signatures created natural interference patterns in the control genjutsu, giving them unusual freedom of thought. When Harry accidentally let them see him use his Sharingan to identify a secret passage, they cornered him with fascinated grins rather than fear. "Wicked eyes you've got there, Harry," Fred, or possibly George, said. "Very unusual," the other twin agreed. "Not standard magical modification." "Don't know what you mean," Harry tried, but the twins laughed. "We've been seeing through bits of the castle's oddness for years," George explained. "Things that don't line up properly," Fred added. "Professors who sometimes seem like they're reading from invisible scripts. Students who suddenly forget conversations about certain topics." Harry studied them carefully. "If I did have unusual eyes that could see through illusions, would that interest you?" The twins exchanged glances. "We've been collecting anomalies since first year," George said. "Started as pranking research," Fred continued. "Turned into something more when we realized someone's been messing with everyone's heads." Harry made a decision. "Meet me tonight in the abandoned classroom on the 4th floor. Bring your anomaly collection." The twins proved to be invaluable allies. Their map, created by the Marauders, who Harry learned included his father, showed Hogwarts as it physically existed, ignoring most of the illusion layers. Using it alongside Harry's Sharingan observations, they began mapping which areas of the castle had weaker genjutsu coverage. "The pipes," Fred noted, pointing to the map. "The monitoring charms don't extend through the plumbing system." "And the room of requirement you mentioned," George added. "Doesn't show on the map at all. Might be completely outside the illusion network." Harry nodded, thinking of the hidden room where he'd viewed Snape's memory of his mother. Lily Evans Potter, demonstrating wandless magic while her eyes glowed red with the Sharingan, dismantling complicated spells with ease and explaining how the magical system had been artificially limited. "We need more allies," Harry said. "People with natural resistance or specialized knowledge." "Longbottom," Fred suggested unexpectedly. "Neville?" Harry asked, surprised. The timid boy seemed thoroughly programmed by the illusions. "His magic feels wrong," George explained. "Like it's been specifically tampered with, beyond the standard limitations." "Luna Lovegood too," Fred added. "First-year Ravenclaw. Everyone thinks she's loopy, but she's actually seeing through the veils," George finished. "Calls them Raxperts and Nargles, but she's identifying control mechanisms in her own way." Harry made mental notes of these potential recruits. "What about other houses? Anyone in Slytherin?" The twins exchanged glances. "Greengrass maybe. She watches too carefully. And that Zabini bloke. Never seems fully caught in group behaviors." Building a cross-house resistance would be challenging but necessary. The illusions specifically reinforced house divisions to prevent unified opposition. The Halloween feast was interrupted by Professor Quirrell's dramatic entrance, screaming about a troll in the dungeons before fainting. Harry immediately activated his Sharingan, confirming his suspicion. Quirrell was faking, and the troll's release was deliberate. More concerning was what he saw happening around Dumbledore. The headmaster's control threads flared brightly, spreading throughout the Great Hall, subtly directing students' reactions and professors' responses. This was the system in active defense mode. Prefects, lead your houses back to the dormitories immediately. Dumbledore commanded. Harry noticed Snape slipping away, heading not toward the dungeons but toward the third floor. Meanwhile, Ron mentioned that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom, unaware of the troll. Decision time. Follow Snape to the third floor, or save Hermione. Ron, we need to find Hermione, Harry said firmly. The third floor could wait, cementing Hermione as an ally took priority. They slipped away from the Gryffindor group, racing toward the bathrooms. The smell hit them first, putrid and rank, followed by the sound of splintering wood. The troll had found Hermione. Harry burst into the bathroom, Sharingan activated. The troll loomed over Hermione, who was crouched under a sink, frozen in terror. With enhanced vision, Harry analyzed the creature instantly, its movements, its vulnerabilities, and most importantly, the faint control threads guiding it specifically toward Hermione. This was no accident. The system was targeting her because she was beginning to question the illusions. Hey, ugly! Ron shouted, throwing a piece of wood at the troll's head. The distraction worked, but Harry had already moved. With Sharingan-enhanced reflexes, he leapt onto the troll's back, clinging to its lumpy skin. The creature bellowed, trying to dislodge him. Ron! Get Hermione out! Harry commanded, driving his wand into the troll's ear, not to cast a spell, but to directly channel his chakra. The troll screamed as raw magical energy bypassed its natural resistance. It staggered, crashing into stalls and sinks. Harry jumped clear, landing in a crouch, Sharingan still blazing. Harry, your eyes! Hermione gasped, staring at him from the doorway where Ron had pulled her. No time to hide it now. Harry faced the disoriented troll, hands forming unfamiliar seals as knowledge from Takashi's training flowed through him. Fire chakra gathered in his lungs. Katan, Gakakyu no Jutsu, he shouted, expelling a massive fireball that engulfed the troll's upper body. The creature toppled backward with a thunderous crash, severely burned but still alive. Harry turned to his friends, knowing his Sharingan was fully visible. I can explain, he started, but Hermione interrupted. Your eyes see through it all, don't they? The wrongness I've been feeling. Harry nodded slowly. The patterns. The scripts everyone follows. It's all an illusion system, 42 layers of magical control. Bloody hell, Ron whispered, looking pale. Unlike Hermione, he showed no signs of breaking through the programming. His reaction was pure shock at Harry's abilities. Footsteps approached rapidly. Harry deactivated his Sharingan just as Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell entered the bathroom. McGonagall gasped at the scene, the unconscious troll, the destroyed bathroom, the 3 first-years standing amid the wreckage. What on earth were you thinking? She demanded. Hermione stepped forward before Harry could speak. It was my fault, Professor. I went looking for the troll, thinking I could handle it. If Harry and Ron hadn't found me, I'd be dead. Harry shot her a grateful look while observing Snape with his peripheral vision. The potions master's robes concealed a bloody leg wound, confirmation he'd encountered something dangerous at the third-floor corridor. Most interesting was Quirrell's reaction. The turbaned professor stared at the troll with calculation rather than fear, and when his gaze shifted to Harry, there was dangerous recognition there. McGonagall lectured them briefly before awarding points for sheer dumb luck and sending them back to Gryffindor Tower. As they walked away, Harry knew everything had changed. Hermione had lied to a professor, something the illusion programming should have prevented, and she'd seen his Sharingan in action. His circle of resistance had officially begun. So these genjutsu layers control everything? Hermione whispered 2 days later in the library's restricted corner, where Harry had arranged privacy wards using techniques from Snape's book. Harry nodded, keeping his Sharingan activated so she could observe his unusual eyes. They limit how people use magic, what they remember, even how they form relationships. The whole wizarding world is under mind control, basically. That's horrific, Hermione breathed. Who's doing it? Voldemort? Dumbledore. Her eyes widened in shock. But he's Dumbledore. That's part of the illusion, making him seem beyond question. Harry traced a pattern on the table. He inherited 15 layers from previous wizards and added 27 more. He believes he's protecting everyone from chaos, but he's really preventing magical evolution. Hermione processed this, her brilliant mind connecting dots. Is that why spells require specific words and movements? To limit how we access magic? Exactly. Raw intent and will should be enough for most magic. The structured system forces dependency on artificial methods. And your eyes can see through it all. She leaned closer, examining his Sharingan with fascination rather than fear. They're called Sharingan. They let me see the control threads, copy techniques instantly, and manipulate the illusions to a degree. Harry deactivated them, returning to his normal green eyes. I'm building a resistance. People who can see through the deception and help break the system. Hermione sat back, expression torn between scholarly excitement and moral outrage. I want in. I've felt something wrong since I arrived here, like my magic wants to work differently than how we're taught. That's because you're naturally resistant. Your Muggle upbringing meant you weren't under the illusions from birth. How do we fight back? She asked, determination hardening her features. Harry smiled. His most important recruitment had succeeded. First, we learn everything about how the system works. Then we find others who can resist. Eventually, we break enough threads to collapse the whole structure. Without causing chaos, Hermione added thoughtfully. If these illusions have been in place for generations, people might not handle sudden freedom well. Harry nodded, impressed by her insight. Exactly. We need a controlled dissolution, not an explosion. As they outlined their research plan, Harry felt genuine hope. With Hermione's analytical brilliance, the twins' practical knowledge, and Snape's inside information, they had the beginnings of a real resistance. December brought snow to Hogwarts and the opportunity to remain at the castle for Christmas. Harry, having no desire to return to the Dursleys, signed up immediately. To his surprise, so did Hermione. My parents suddenly decided to go skiing, she explained skeptically. They've never shown interest in skiing before. And when I suggested joining them, they insisted I'd enjoy Hogwarts more. It felt programmed. Harry nodded grimly. The illusion keeping you here for some reason. We'll use the time to our advantage. With most students gone for holidays, Harry expanded their resistance training. Hermione practiced breaking through minor illusion threads under his guidance. The Weasley twins tested the boundaries of the monitoring systems, mapping blind spots throughout the castle. Neville Longbottom, recently introduced to their group, focused on overcoming the specific blocks placed on his magic. It's like there's a wall, Neville explained during one session in the Room of Requirement. I can feel my magic behind it, but something's stopping me from reaching it. Harry activated his Sharingan, examining the complex threads surrounding Neville's magical core. Someone specifically bound your powers. Not the general limitations everyone has, something personal. My grandmother mentioned accidental magic I did as a baby, before my parents were. Neville trailed off. After that, nothing until I was 8, and even then, barely anything. Harry focused intently on the binding pattern. I think I can weaken it, but it would be obvious to Dumbledore if broken completely. We'll have to do it gradually. Christmas morning brought an unexpected gift, an invisibility cloak that had belonged to Harry's father. His Sharingan revealed it was virtually unaffected by the illusion system, existing somewhat outside the normal magical spectrum. That night, Harry used the cloak to visit the restricted section, searching for information about Sharingan and dimensional rifts. Instead, he discovered the Mirror of Erist, and with it, another layer of Dumbledore's manipulation. With his Sharingan active, Harry saw the mirror was more than a reflection of desires. It was a sophisticated scanning device, analyzing the viewer's mind and feeding information back to the illusion system. When he looked into it, he deliberately projected false desires, seeing himself holding the Philosopher's Stone, while hiding his true wish to shatter Dumbledore's control. When Dumbledore, coincidentally, found him there the following night, Harry maintained his deception, playing the role of a boy fascinated by images of his lost family. The headmaster's explanation about the mirror's power was accurate but incomplete. He failed to mention its surveillance function. The happiest man on earth would look in the mirror and see only himself, exactly as he is, Dumbledore claimed. "What do you see when you look in it, sir?" Harry asked innocently. A flicker of something crossed Dumbledore's face. I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." Harry's Sharingan, briefly activated behind Dumbledore's back, revealed the truth. The headmaster saw himself standing amid shattered control threads, magical chaos surrounding him, as he desperately tried to rebuild the illusion system. His greatest fear, not his desire. January brought the return of students and intensified resistance activities. Harry had mapped 27 of the 42 genjutsu layers, identifying their specific functions. Layer 1, Basic Reality Perception, altering how magical energy appears. Layer 2, Language Limitations, restricting incantations to Latin-based vocabulary. Layer 3, Wand Dependency, channeling magic through artificial foci. Layer 4, False Dark/Light Dichotomy. Layer 5, House Divisions, enforcing arbitrary separation. Layer 7, Wandless Magic Suppression. Layer 8, Magical Creature Perception, making them seem less sentient. Layer 10, Blood Status Importance. Layer 12, Memory Alteration System. Layer 13, Prophecy Control. Layer 14, Magical Transport Limitations. Layer 16, Voldemort Narrative Construction. Layer 18, Time Magic Restrictions. Layer 21, Magical Government Legitimacy. Layer 22, Historical Revisionism. Layer 25, Magical Maturation Dampening. Layer 29, Familial Loyalty Enforcement. Layer 30, Animagus Limitation. Layer 31, Soul Magic Prohibition. Layer 32, Dimensional Barrier Enforcement. Layer 36, Magical Innovation Suppression. Layer 38, Global Wizarding Separation. Layer 39, Creature Language Barriers. Layer 40, Magical Oath System. Layer 42, Self-Perpetuation Mechanism. With Hermione's help, he developed techniques to temporarily bypass specific layers without triggering system alerts. They focused particularly on Layer 3, Wand Dependency, and Layer 7, Wandless Suppression, teaching resistance members to perform simple spells without wands. "It's easier than it should be," Hermione noted after successfully levitating a feather with just her finger. "Like my magic wants to work this way naturally." "Because it does," Harry confirmed. "The wand movement and incantation are artificial limitations." Their group expanded cautiously. Luna Lovegood joined after Christmas, her natural ability to see magical auras making her immediately valuable. Daphne Greengrass from Slytherin was recruited through careful observation. Harry had noticed her subtly fighting the house rivalry programming. Most surprising was Draco Malfoy's gradual shift toward awareness. The blonde Slytherin had begun watching Harry intently, not with hostility but with calculation. When Harry deliberately performed wandless magic where Draco could see, the Malfoy heir cornered him after class. "My father says the wizarding world wasn't always this way," Draco said without preamble. "Says our family archives show different magical methods from centuries ago. Methods that disappeared suddenly." Harry studied him carefully. What if they didn't disappear? What if they were hidden by design? Draco's eyes narrowed. "Is that what you're doing, Potter? Rediscovering old magic?" "Not rediscovering. Breaking through the barriers placed around it." Harry took a calculated risk. Your family preserves knowledge from before the limitations were established. That's why purebloods still hold power, you retain fragments of unrestrained magical understanding. This approach appealed to Draco's sense of superiority while offering a new perspective on blood politics. Not Muggleborns versus purebloods, but free magic versus controlled magic. My father would be interested in this conversation, Draco said finally. Careful who you tell, Harry warned. The system has ways of identifying threats. Draco didn't immediately join the resistance, but he stopped antagonizing Harry's group, the first step toward potential alliance. As winter turned to spring, Harry focused increasingly on the Philosopher's Stone situation. Snape had confirmed it was a test, not a genuine protection scenario, but Quirrell's interest seemed independent of Dumbledore's manipulation. The stone isn't what everyone thinks, Snape explained during another detention. Its immortality and gold-creating properties are illusions, Layer 17 specifically. Its true purpose is stabilizing the genjutsu system, providing a passive power source. So Quirrell trying to steal it would destabilize certain illusion layers temporarily. Not break them, but weaken them enough for some to see through. This explained Quirrell's divided consciousness. The host personality was controlled by the system, but the parasite consciousness, which Harry increasingly suspected was the real Voldemort, existed partially outside it. Harry decided to monitor the situation rather than intervene directly. If Quirrell/Voldemort succeeded in disrupting the stone's function, it might create an opportunity for the resistance. Meanwhile, end-of-year exams approached, creating cover for increased resistance training. The Room of Requirement became their headquarters, transformed into a space where the genjutsu layers were naturally weaker. Harry's Sharingan continued evolving. The tomo in each eye now spun faster when activated, and he could maintain the ability longer without chakra depletion. Hermione theorized this was his magic adapting to compensate for the drain. More exciting was his discovery that he could temporarily transfer Sharingan vision to others through sustained eye contact. This allowed him to show resistance members exactly how the control threads looked, strengthening their ability to resist specific illusions. "It's beautiful and terrifying," Luna commented after experiencing Sharingan vision. "The colors of the binding threads tell stories. Dumbledore's are golden but fraying at the edges. He's losing control of his own creation." This observation matched what Harry had noticed during meals in the Great Hall. The headmaster looked increasingly tired, the effort of maintaining 42 genjutsu layers taking a physical toll. Occasionally, when he thought no one was watching, his grandfatherly mask slipped, revealing calculating eyes and tension around his mouth. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. During their last exam, Harry's scar erupted in pain, a direct attack through Layer 16, the Voldemort narrative construction. "He's making his move for the stone tonight," Harry told the core resistance members after exams finished. "Quirrell, not Snape. And he's not working for Voldemort, he's possessed by him. Should we tell Dumbledore?" Neville asked nervously. Harry shook his head. "This is an opportunity. If Quirrell disrupts the stone's function, several genjutsu layers will temporarily weaken. We need to be ready to exploit that moment." "For what purpose?" Hermione asked practically. "To access the Chamber of Secrets," Harry replied. "Snape confirmed it exists outside most of the illusion layers. If we can reach it during the disruption, we'll have a permanent base beyond Dumbledore's monitoring." They formulated a plan. Harry would follow Quirrell through the third-floor gauntlet, not to stop him but to observe and potentially accelerate the stone's disruption. Meanwhile, Hermione and Luna would research possible chamber entrances, ready to move when the illusions weakened. That night, Harry slipped under his invisibility cloak and headed to the third-floor corridor. As expected, the protections were already breached, the sleeping Fluffy, the Devil's Snare trapdoor, all bypassed by Quirrell. Harry followed efficiently, his Sharingan allowing him to navigate each challenge with minimal effort. When he reached the potion riddle, he discovered Snape waiting instead of a mere puzzle. "Potter," Snape acknowledged without surprise. "I assumed you'd interfere." Not interfere. Observe, Harry corrected, deactivating his invisibility cloak. Snape's eyes narrowed. The disruption will be dangerous. Quirrell isn't merely stealing the stone, he's attempting to consume its power directly. Good. The more destabilization, the better our opportunity. Foolish. Some layers exist for necessary protection, not just control. Snape handed him a vial. This will get you through the flames. When the backlash begins, shield your mind with the Sharingan or risk permanent damage. Harry pocketed the potion. Why are you helping if you think it's dangerous? Snape's expression hardened. Because your mother would have done exactly what you're doing, consequences be damned. Go. I'll manage Dumbledore's attention when he arrives. The final chamber revealed Quirrell standing before the mirror of Eriste, turban removed to expose a grotesque face protruding from the back of his head, Voldemort's distorted features. I know you're there, Potter, Quirrell called without turning. Your disillusionment is ineffective against our shared connection. Harry dropped his concealment, Sharingan already activated. You're trying to absorb the stone's power, not just possess it. Clever boy. Voldemort's face twisted in a parody of a smile. You see more than most. Those eyes, unexpected. The old man's control slipping already. The illusions are breaking down, Harry confirmed, circling to see the mirror. You're outside the system, aren't you? Not fully controlled by the genjutsu. Voldemort laughed, a chilling sound from Quirrell's body. I broke free decades ago, after discovering certain, dimensional truths. Dumbledore's response was to write me into his narrative as the convenient villain, justifying tighter controls. So you're not trying to return to power? Take over the wizarding world? Power, yes. His simplistic version of domination? Hardly. Voldemort's red eyes fixed on Harry's Sharingan. Those eyes come from where I've been, boy. Beyond the veil between worlds that Dumbledore so desperately maintains. Quirrell turned back to the mirror. Help me obtain the stone. Together, we can shatter the old fool's illusions completely. Harry analyzed the situation with his Sharingan. Voldemort wasn't lying exactly, but he wasn't offering genuine partnership either. He wanted the stone's power exclusively. I think disruption is better than destruction, Harry said carefully. People need time to adjust to freedom. Weakness, Voldemort hissed. The strong will adapt, the weak perish. Natural selection. While they spoke, Harry examined the mirror with his Sharingan, seeing its true function, not just a hiding place for the stone, but an anchor point for multiple illusion layers. If it broke during Voldemort's attempt to extract the stone. I'll help, Harry decided, approaching the mirror. What do you need me to do? Look into it. Your unique position in the narrative gives you different access parameters. Harry stood before the mirror, channeling his desire not for the stone itself, but for understanding its connection to the illusion system. The mirror responded, showing him holding a blood-red crystal that pulsed in sync with the genjutsu layers. He felt a weight drop into his pocket, the stone had transferred to him exactly as Dumbledore had designed. But his Sharingan revealed something crucial, the mirror still maintained a phantom connection to the stone, and that connection ran through Harry himself. I have it, he told Voldemort. Give it to me, Quirrell demanded, reaching for him. Harry allowed himself to be grabbed, watching through his Sharingan as the contact created a feedback loop. Quirrell's flesh began to blister where he touched Harry, not because of Lily's protection as Dumbledore would later claim, but because the stone's energy was cycling chaotically through Harry into Quirrell. The disruption escalated rapidly. Control threads throughout the chamber began to vibrate, some snapping completely as the system's power source destabilized. Harry's scar erupted with pain as Layer 16, the Voldemort narrative construction, temporarily collapsed. Quirrell screamed, his body disintegrating as Voldemort's spirit tore free, unable to maintain possession amid the chaotic energy. The wraith-like form of Voldemort surged toward Harry, passing through him in a last desperate attempt to claim the stone. The contact shattered the remaining stable threads in the chamber. The mirror cracked from top to bottom, and a shockwave of released energy knocked Harry unconscious. His last thought was satisfaction. The disruption had been more effective than he'd hoped. Throughout Hogwarts, the Resistance would be exploiting temporary gaps in the illusion system. Harry awoke in the hospital wing 3 days later, surrounded by gifts from admirers who believed Dumbledore's constructed narrative. Brave Harry Potter had prevented Professor Quirrell from stealing the Philosopher's Stone on Voldemort's behalf. Dumbledore himself sat beside the bed, blue eyes twinkling. "Good morning, Harry," he greeted warmly. "You've had quite an adventure." Harry blinked innocently, keeping his thoughts shielded. "Professor Dumbledore? What happened?" What followed was a masterclass in misdirection. Dumbledore explained a version of events that contained just enough truth to seem genuine while reinforcing the illusion narrative. Harry had supposedly been protected by his mother's love. Quirrell couldn't touch him because of this protection, and the stone had been destroyed to prevent future attempts at stealing it. "Between you and me," Dumbledore concluded with a conspiratorial smile, "the events in the chamber will remain our secret. We wouldn't want to worry your friends unnecessarily." "Of course, Professor," Harry agreed, playing his role perfectly. What Dumbledore couldn't know without triggering system alerts, was that the Resistance had succeeded beyond expectations during the disruption. Hermione and Luna had located the Chamber of Secrets entrance in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Fred and George had copied restricted books from the headmaster's private collection while security wards were down. Neville had broken through enough of his personal bindings to access his true magical potential. And Daphne Greengrass had convinced 3 more Slytherins to question the artificial house rivalries. Most importantly, the stone's destruction was another layer of misdirection. The physical object had indeed been eliminated, but its power had been partially absorbed into Harry's magical core through his Sharingan. He could now manipulate the illusion system in small ways without detection, a crucial advantage for the summer ahead. When Dumbledore finally left, Harry smiled at the ceiling. The Resistance was growing, the illusions were weakening, and next year would bring new opportunities to dismantle the system further. The chamber awaited. The truth about his parents' rebellion needed to be uncovered. And somewhere, a newly discorporated Voldemort was planning his own moves against Dumbledore's grand illusion. Harry Potter, the boy with the Sharingan eyes, was ready for them all. Chapter 3, Fractured Illusion. Summer crawled by with excruciating slowness. Harry paced the confines of his bedroom at Privet Drive, fingertips tingling with unreleased magical energy. The Dursleys largely ignored him now, a strategic modification he'd made to the control thread surrounding the house after returning from Hogwarts. 2 more weeks, he muttered, glancing at the calendar where he'd been marking off days. Since absorbing part of the Philosopher's Stone's power, Harry's Sharingan had evolved. Each eye now displayed 3 tomos spinning around his pupils when activated, and he could maintain the ability for hours without fatigue. More importantly, he could now directly manipulate minor control threads without triggering system alerts, like adjusting the Dursleys' behavior from active hostility to wary avoidance. A tap at the window interrupted his thoughts. A sleek eagle owl hovered outside, a sealed letter clutched in its talons. Harry recognized the Greengrass family crest on the wax seal. Inside was a coded message from Daphne: "The seeds you planted are growing." Father questioned family records after overhearing my private conversation with Tracy. Found inconsistencies in generational magic decline. Malfoy Patriarch making inquiries through same channels. Summer gathering at neutral location possible. Respond with parameters. Harry grinned. The Resistance was expanding beyond Hogwarts exactly as planned. Over summer break, each core member had specific assignments. Hermione researched historical deviations in magical theory, the Weasley twins mapped illusion weak points throughout Britain, Neville examined his family's grimoires for pre-restriction magic, and Luna documented perception shifts among magical creatures. Harry's own summer project was more direct, experimenting with the stone's absorbed power to manipulate the illusion system itself. He quickly penned a response to Daphne, suggesting neutral ground for a gathering in early August. The old families needed to be brought into the resistance carefully, their natural suspicion of change redirected toward the real enemy, Dumbledore's controlling genjutsu. As the owl departed, Harry sensed a disturbance in the neighborhood's ambient magic. His Sharingan activated instantly, revealing a house elf perched on his bed, surrounded by unusual control threads, neither fully under the illusion system nor completely free. "Harry Potter," the creature squeaked. "Such an honor it is." "Who are you?" Harry asked, studying the elf's magical signature. "Dobby, sir." Dobby the house elf. What followed was a convoluted warning about terrible dangers awaiting at Hogwarts, coupled with a confession of intercepting Harry's mail from his friends. Throughout the conversation, Harry observed how the elf's control threads fluctuated, stretching toward an external master while simultaneously trying to break free. "Your master doesn't know you're here," Harry noted, causing Dobby to wail about punishing himself later. When Dobby threatened to use magic to prevent Harry's return to Hogwarts, Harry made a decision. With lightning reflexes, he grabbed the elf's thin arm, channeling a pulse of energy through his Sharingan directly into Dobby's magical core. "Listen carefully," Harry said softly as the elf froze. "I can see the bonds controlling you, and I can help break them. But you must not interfere with my plans." Dobby's huge eyes widened further. "Harry Potter can see the binding threads. Harry Potter has the ancient eyes." "You know about my eyes?" Harry asked, surprised. "House elves remember the time before the Great Binding," Dobby whispered. "When magic flowed free and creatures were equals. The red eyes were from before." This was unexpected information. "Tell me about the Great Binding." "Cannot say much. The binding prevents." Dobby struggled visibly. "But old elf stories tell of a time when wizards feared chaos magic. Created layers of control. Sacrificed magical creatures' freedom first, then limited themselves. Dumbledore didn't create the system," Harry realized. "He inherited it and expanded it. Many masters over many centuries," Dobby confirmed. "Each adding new threads to the great web." Harry filed this information away. "The danger at Hogwarts, does it involve the Chamber of Secrets?" Dobby's violent reaction confirmed Harry's suspicion. "How does Harry Potter know of the chamber?" "It is part of Master's plan." "Your master is trying to open the chamber." "A terrible dark object. A book that is not a book. It compels." Dobby pulled his ears in distress. Harry considered this. If someone was targeting the chamber, likely Lucius Malfoy based on Dobby's ownership, it complicated his own plans to use it as a resistance headquarters. "I'll handle the danger," Harry promised. "But I need you to do something for me. Stop intercepting my mail, and when possible, bring me information about this plan involving the chamber." Dobby looked conflicted but eventually nodded. "Dobby will try, if Harry Potter promises to be careful. The chamber holds more than secrets, it holds a key to unraveling the binding itself." After Dobby departed, Harry activated his Sharingan fully, accessing the fragment of the stone's power he'd internalized. With careful concentration, he extended his senses beyond Privet Drive, searching for surveillance threads monitoring his location. He found several magical tripwires designed to alert Dumbledore if Harry left the property's boundaries. With surgical precision, he modified these threads, creating a looped perception that would show him safely inside regardless of his actual location. "Time to accelerate the plan," he murmured, packing essential items into a backpack. That night, Harry Potter vanished from Privet Drive without triggering a single alarm. The night bus deposited Harry near a nondescript building in London. After confirming no tracking charms had attached to him during transit, he approached what appeared to be an abandoned storefront. To normal eyes, the windows displayed dusty mannequins. To his Sharingan, it revealed a complex gateway surrounded by misdirection wards. St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. Harry entered confidently, bypassing the welcome witch by subtly bending the attention-directing threads away from himself. He consulted the directory briefly before heading to the fourth floor. Spell damage. The long-term residence ward was quiet at this late hour. Harry moved silently past sleeping patients until reaching the beds at the far end, surrounded by privacy curtains. He slipped through, finding two still figures lying motionless despite being wide awake. Frank and Alice Longbottom. "Hello," Harry said softly. "I'm Harry Potter, Neville's friend." Neither responded verbally, but both sets of eyes tracked him with more awareness than their medical chart suggested. Harry activated his Sharingan, and nearly stepped back in shock. The Longbottoms weren't merely damaged by torture as the official story claimed, they were imprisoned within their own minds by the most complex individual genjutsu Harry had ever seen. Thousands of control threads wrapped around their magical cores, neural pathways, and memory centers. This wasn't Dumbledore's broad-spectrum illusion system, this was targeted, malicious binding designed specifically for them. "You know something dangerous," Harry whispered. "Something about the original illusions." Alice Longbottom's fingers twitched slightly. Harry moved closer, placing his hands gently on their foreheads. "I'm going to try something. It won't fix everything, but it might create a path for communication." Channeling chakra through his Sharingan, Harry carefully traced the control threads to their anchoring points. Unlike the standardized 42 layers affecting everyone, these bindings had signature magical traces. Whoever had done this had personalized the prison. Working delicately, Harry loosened specific memory-blocking threads without breaking them entirely. A complete liberation would trigger system alerts, but creating small gaps might allow moments of clarity. After 20 minutes of intense concentration, Harry stepped back, sweat beading his forehead. "Mrs. Longbottom? Mr. Longbottom? Can you understand me now?" Alice's eyes focused with sudden clarity. Her hand shook as she reached for a notepad beside her bed. With trembling fingers, she scrawled a single word, "Rookwood." Frank managed a hoarse whisper, forcing out fragments, "Department, Mysteries, Veil Project." Dumbledore knew. The effort clearly exhausted them, the binding threads already beginning to reassert control. Alice managed to write one more message before her hand fell limp, "Tell Neville, Family Vault, Pensieve." Harry committed every word to memory, then carefully rearranged the surface binding threads to hide evidence of his tampering. "I'll help Neville free you properly," he promised. "We're building a resistance." As he slipped out of St. Mungo's, Harry's mind raced with implications. The Longbottoms hadn't been tortured to insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange as the official story claimed, they'd been deliberately silenced by someone connected to the Department of Mysteries, with Dumbledore's apparent knowledge. Another layer of deception in the headmaster's grand illusion. 2 days before returning to Hogwarts, Harry met the core resistance members at a secure location, the Lovegood home, which Luna's father had layered with unconventional protective charms that disrupted standard monitoring. "The Quibbler's printing press is specially warded," Luna explained as they gathered in the basement. "Dad designed it to break information suppression charms. Anything discussed here won't register in Dumbledore's surveillance network." Hermione arrived first, lugging a heavy bag of books. Her appearance had changed subtly, her hair less bushy, her posture more confident, and most noticeably, her eyes sharper and more observant. "I've been practicing breaking through the perception limitations," she explained, noticing Harry's appreciative glance. "Layer 1 modifications affect how we physically appear to ourselves and others." The Weasley twins arrived next, followed by Neville, who looked both nervous and determined. "I went to our family vault," he said without preamble. "Found the pensieve and my parents' memories." "You were right, Harry. Everything we've been told is a lie." Daphne Greengrass arrived last, accompanied unexpectedly by Draco Malfoy. Harry tensed momentarily until Daphne shook her head slightly. "He's here in good faith," she assured them. "His father's planning something involving the chamber, and Draco wants no part of it." "I've seen our family records from before the restrictions," Draco explained stiffly, clearly uncomfortable surrounded by people he'd been programmed to consider enemies. "The magic we've lost," It's staggering. Father thinks releasing the chamber's guardian will somehow help restore pureblood supremacy, but he's just another puppet playing his assigned role. Harry evaluated Draco with his Sharingan, noting the significantly weakened control threads surrounding him. The Malfoy heir had begun breaking through the illusions independently, a promising development. "Welcome to the Resistance," Harry said simply, extending his hand. As Draco shook it, Harry addressed the assembled group. "This year is critical. We've identified 40 of the 42 Genjutsu layers, we've established methods for breaking through minor controls, and we've located the Chamber of Secrets, a founder's failsafe against the illusion system." "How exactly is a legendary chamber with a monster inside a failsafe?" Hermione asked practically. Harry gestured to Neville, who removed a small crystal vial from his pocket. "This is a memory from my great-grandfather, recorded before the Layer 22 historical revision took full effect." They took turns viewing the memory through the portable pensive Luna's father had provided. It showed Hogwarts from a century earlier, subtly different in architecture and ambience. A bearded wizard explained to his grandson how Salazar Slytherin had foreseen attempts to control magic itself and had created a sanctuary beneath the school where original, unrestricted magic could be preserved. "The basilisk isn't a weapon," Fred said excitedly after viewing the memory. "It's a guardian," George finished. "Protecting knowledge Slytherin hid." "And its gaze doesn't kill," Hermione added, eyes wide with realization. "It breaks through illusions completely. The petrification is actually the mind recalibrating after having all 42 layers shattered at once." Harry nodded. "Exactly. The chamber isn't Slytherin's attack on Muggleborns, that's Layer 22 historical revision. It's his protection against exactly what happened, powerful wizards systematically restricting magical potential." "But my father's planning to use the chamber for something else," Draco interjected. "He has this diary that belonged to someone named Tom Riddle. It contains compulsion magic beyond anything I've seen." Voldemort's real name was Tom Riddle, Harry revealed, causing gasps around the room. "The diary is likely his Horcrux, a soul fragment embedded in an object." "How do you know about Horcruxes?" Daphne asked sharply. "That's restricted knowledge even in the old families. I absorbed part of the Philosopher's Stone's power," Harry explained. "It gives me limited access to the illusion system's suppressed information. Voldemort created multiple Horcruxes to anchor himself outside the control system." "So he's fighting against the illusions too?" Neville asked. "Yes, but not to free everyone, to establish his own version of control," Harry clarified. "He discovered the truth decades ago and tried to break free, but his methods were destructive. Dumbledore rewrote him into a convenient villain to justify strengthening the illusions." Luna tilted her head thoughtfully. "So we have three factions, Dumbledore maintaining control, Voldemort seeking to replace it, and us trying to dismantle it safely." "Four factions," Hermione corrected. "The Ministry is increasingly acting independently from Dumbledore. They're still under the illusions, but pursuing their own agenda within the system." Harry stood, facing his friends with determination. "This year, we find the chamber before Lucius Malfoy's plan activates. We secure the basilisk and use its gaze controlled through my Sharingan to selectively break illusions throughout the school. By year's end, we'll have fractured Dumbledore's control system beyond repair." Everyone nodded, faces resolute. The resistance had evolved from confused children to determined revolutionaries, each now possessing specific skills and knowledge to counter different aspects of the illusion system. As they discussed tactical details, Harry felt a surge of pride and responsibility. His mother had started this fight years ago, and now her son would finish it, breaking the chains binding the wizarding world's true potential. Platform 9 3/4 hummed with familiar energies as Harry passed through the barrier. With his Sharingan briefly activated, he scanned for changes in the station's control matrix. The overall structure remained intact, but he noted concerning reinforcements to specific layers, particularly Layer 21, which legitimized Ministry authority. "They've been busy," he murmured to Hermione as she joined him. The Ministry's tightening their portion of the illusion network. Makes sense after the stone incident, she replied quietly. Dumbledore had to explain the energy fluctuations somehow. Probably blamed it on Voldemort's attempt to return. They boarded the train, securing a compartment for the Resistance members. As others joined them, conversation flowed naturally between operational planning and normal teenage topics, a deliberate blend to avoid suspicion from passing students. Halfway through the journey, the compartment door slid open to reveal a small red-headed girl, Ron's younger sister. Have you seen Ron?" she asked nervously, eyes widening as she recognized Harry. "Try 3 compartments down," Fred suggested, studying his sister thoughtfully after she left. Heavily influenced, he noted once she was gone. More control threads than Ron, even. Interesting timing, Harry mused. Her first year coincides with Lucius Malfoy's chamber plan. "You think she's involved somehow?" Draco asked. "Everyone at Hogwarts is involved, willing or not," Harry replied. "The question is whether she's been specifically programmed for something." The countryside rolled by as they refined plans for the term ahead. Each member had assigned responsibilities. Hermione would research basilisk lore to determine safe interaction methods, the twins would create distractions when needed, Neville would monitor staff movements, Luna would communicate with castle ghosts who existed partially outside the illusion system, and Daphne and Draco would maintain intelligence networks in Slytherin House. Harry's primary focus would be locating the chamber entrance and developing his Sharingan's abilities to control the basilisk's gaze effect. As the train approached Hogsmeade, an unexpected magical pulse washed over them. Harry activated his Sharingan immediately, seeing distortion in the ambient control threads. "Something's wrong," he said sharply. The train just passed through a modified boundary ward. Seconds later, the train lurched to a halt. Through the windows, they could see cloaked figures boarding at both ends. "Ministry officials," Hermione whispered, recognizing their magical signatures. The compartment door slid open, revealing a stern-faced wizard in official robes. "Mandatory inspection. New security protocols." Harry read the situation instantly through his Sharingan. This wasn't standard procedure, the Ministry was implementing enhanced monitoring, using security concerns as justification. The officials carried detection devices designed to identify students breaking through illusion controls. With split-second decision-making, Harry subtly manipulated the local control threads, creating a dampening field around their compartment. To the officials' detection spells, they would register as normal students fully under illusion influence. "Inspection clear," the official noted after waving his wand in a complex pattern. "Proceed to Hogwarts." After he left, Harry maintained the dampening field until the train resumed motion. "The Ministry's taking a more active role in monitoring," he explained. "Layer 21 strengthening, as we observed at the station." "They're getting nervous," Hermione suggested. "More students must be naturally breaking through thin spots in the illusions." "Or Dumbledore's control is weakening," Luna added dreamily. "The castle felt different at year's end." "More awake." Harry nodded grimly. "Either way, we need to accelerate our timetable." The welcoming feast brought another surprise, Gilderoy Lockhart as defense against the dark arts professor. Harry's Sharingan revealed something fascinating about the flamboyant wizard. His control threads were uniquely modified, creating a selective perception filter that made others see him as more impressive than he actually was. "He's weaponized Layer 1, Harry whispered to Hermione. "Integrated personal glamours directly into the perception illusion." "Clever," she admitted. "Unethical, but clever." More concerning was Dumbledore himself. The headmaster appeared outwardly unchanged, twinkling eyes, benevolent smile, but his magical core showed significant strain. Maintaining the illusion system was consuming his energy at an accelerated rate. Harry caught Snape's eye briefly during the feast. The potion's master gave an imperceptible nod, confirming they would continue their covert communications. That night in the Gryffindor dormitory, Harry used the stone's absorbed power to create a privacy bubble around his bed. Inside this space, control threads couldn't penetrate, allowing resistance members to communicate without surveillance. Fred and George arrived first, slipping through the temporarily modified ward Harry had placed on the stairs to allow inter-house movement undetected. "We've been mapping the castle's response to the stone disruption," Fred reported, unfolding a modified version of the Marauders map. "Certain areas have permanent weaknesses now," George continued, pointing to specific locations. "Especially around the second-floor girls' bathroom." "Myrtle's bathroom," Harry noted. "Confirms our chamber entrance theory." Luna and Neville arrived next, followed by Hermione. Daphne and Draco, operating under deeper cover in Slytherin, would receive updates through enchanted notebooks Hermione had created, modified versions of the communication system Tom Riddle's diary used, but without the soul fragment. "Lockhart's a fraud," Hermione announced without preamble. "I checked his published timelines against international wizarding newspapers. He was supposedly defeating the Wagga Wagga werewolf while simultaneously receiving an award in London." "Not surprising," Harry replied. "But why would Dumbledore hire an obvious fraud?" "Controlled opposition," Neville suggested, confidence growing in his strategic thinking. "Someone teaching defense poorly without realizing it, while genuinely believing they're competent." "Layer 13 influence," Luna added. "Prophecy control requires manipulatable players in key positions." Harry considered this. Lockhart could be useful then, a wild card whose vanity might create opportunities. They outlined first-week objectives: confirm the chamber entrance, establish secure communication channels, monitor Ginny Weasley for signs of diary influence, and identify which students showed natural resistance to the illusions. As the meeting concluded, Harry shared one final observation. "The Sorting Hat spoke to me during the ceremony. It said Dumbledore's questioning why certain students weren't sorted as expected this year. The illusions are affecting the sorting less," Hermione realized. "Students are being placed by their true personalities rather than their programmed roles." "Another crack in the system," Harry said with satisfaction. "Every small failure compounds the strain on Dumbledore's control." Classes began with predictable patterns. Professors delivered curriculum designed to reinforce the illusion system's limitations, students absorbed knowledge through artificially constrained pathways, and the castle's ambient magic continued its subtle rebellion against centuries of control. Harry's first detention with Snape came after a deliberately failed potion in their initial class. Once privacy wards were established, Snape provided critical updates. Lucius Malfoy planted the diary on the youngest Weasley girl during the Diagon Alley confrontation with Arthur, he confirmed. "The Horcrux is already influencing her, though subtly so far." "What's its objective?" Harry asked. "To open the chamber and release the basilisk for its mistaken purpose, attacking Muggleborns." Snape sorted ingredients methodically, maintaining the appearance of a detention. "The diary contains a specific version of Riddle, one still operating under certain illusions while fighting others. A fragment that believes the chamber's purpose is purification, not liberation," Harry realized. Snape nodded curtly. "Meanwhile, Dumbledore suspects someone absorbed power from the stone before its destruction. He's implemented additional monitoring charms throughout the castle, focused particularly on you." "Expected," Harry replied, unconcerned. "I've been redirecting his surveillance to show compliant behavior." "Don't grow overconfident, Potter. The headmaster created 27 illusion layers himself. He understands misdirection better than anyone." Harry acknowledged this warning with appropriate gravity. "What about the Ministry's increased involvement? Fudge is acting semi-independently." After the stone incident, fluctuations in the illusion system reached the Ministry. Officials who were never supposed to question certain arrangements suddenly experienced moments of clarity. Snape's expression darkened. Rather than addressing the real issue, they're attributing these irregularities to Dumbledore losing control of Hogwarts. "Which isn't entirely wrong," Harry pointed out. "No, but their solution is more control, not less." Snape finished organizing ingredients and turned to face Harry directly. There's something else. The chamber's basilisk isn't merely a guardian. According to records I've accessed in the headmaster's private collection, it contains knowledge transferred directly from Salazar Slytherin, a living repository of original magical understanding. This was a significant revelation. So when it looks at someone, it doesn't just break illusions, it can transfer pre-restriction magical knowledge directly to the viewer. Snape's eyes gleamed with rare excitement. That's why the petrification response seems so severe. The mind is integrating centuries of suppressed magical theory all at once. Harry considered the implications. We'll need to modulate the exposure. Perhaps my Sharingan can filter the knowledge transfer, making it gradual rather than overwhelming. Precisely why the Sorting Hat directed you to the chamber, Snape agreed. Your eyes make you uniquely qualified to communicate with the basilisk safely. As the detention concluded, Snape provided one final piece of information: Dumbledore will be absent this weekend, International Confederation meeting. The surveillance charms will operate automatically, but with less adaptive capability. An opportunity, if you're prepared to move quickly. Harry wasted no time. Saturday morning, the Resistance gathered in Myrtle's bathroom, having confirmed through careful observation that this location showed the greatest weakening in the illusion structure. The entrance requires Parseltongue, Harry explained, approaching the sink with the tiny snake engraving. But you're not a Parselmouth, Hermione noted with concern. Not naturally, Harry agreed. But my Sharingan can copy abilities temporarily. He activated his evolved eyes, 3 tomos spinning rapidly as he recalled his brief connection with Voldemort during the mirror confrontation. Focusing on that memory, Harry channeled the absorbed linguistic pattern. Open, he hissed in Parseltongue, the sound alien even to his own ears. The sinks reconfigured, revealing a large pipe descending into darkness. Harry turned to his friends. Hermione, Luna, and I will explore first. The rest of you maintain lookout positions. If we're not back in 2 hours, implement Emergency Protocol Alpha. After exchanging nods with the group, Harry led Hermione and Luna down the pipe, using wandless magic to control their descent. The journey through dark, slimy tunnels ended at a massive circular door emblazoned with serpents. Another command in Parseltongue opened this final barrier, revealing a vast chamber supported by towering stone pillars entwined with serpent carvings. At the far end stood an enormous statue of Salazar Slytherin, his ancient face bearing little resemblance to historical depictions. The architecture isn't fully Gothic, Hermione observed, examining their surroundings with scholarly precision despite the tense situation. These elements predate conventional wizarding construction methods. Luna moved differently, almost dancing between pillars. The illusions are so thin here, she said wonderingly. I can feel the castle's true nature pressing against them. Harry activated his Sharingan fully, absorbing every detail. The chamber existed in a peculiar relationship with the illusion system, technically within Hogwarts but somehow operating on a different magical frequency. Control threads were visible but fragmented, unable to maintain coherence in this space. Most importantly, he could sense the basilisk's presence, not physically manifested yet, but its consciousness radiating from somewhere within the statue. It's aware of us, Harry warned quietly. But not hostile. It's curious. Approaching the statue, Harry called out in Parseltongue, "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." The statue's mouth began opening, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. Harry raised his hand, signaling his companions. Close your eyes if you sense movement. My Sharingan should protect me from the full effect, but we can't risk direct exposure yet. A massive form began emerging from the statue, scales rasping against stone as an enormous serpent slithered into the chamber. Harry maintained eye contact through his Sharingan, acting as intermediary between the basilisk and his friends. A speaker comes with the ancient eyes, the basilisk hissed, its voice surprisingly melodic in Parseltongue. After so long alone, the awakener arrives. I seek knowledge preserved here, Harry replied. The world above is bound by illusions, 42 layers of control. The basilisk's massive head inclined slightly. The binding that Salazar foresaw. He created me to preserve what would be lost and awaken those ready for truth. Through careful negotiation, Harry established a remarkable fact: the basilisk, which called itself Saratha, had never been intended as a weapon. Its gaze didn't kill but rather shattered illusions completely, overwhelming unprepared minds. The petrification reported in legends was a protective measure, placing victims in stasis until their minds could integrate the sudden influx of unrestricted magical knowledge. The girl child who comes through the pipes carries a fragment of corruption, Saratha warned. A twisted soul commanding my service against my true purpose. Tom Riddle's diary, Harry confirmed. We must retrieve it before his influence strengthens. The basilisk regarded Harry thoughtfully, its huge golden eyes meeting his Sharingan without harmful effect. Your eyes can modulate my gaze. Together, we could awaken minds gradually rather than overwhelming them. This confirmed Harry's theory. With his Sharingan as a filter, they could strategically break through illusions in controlled stages, preventing the shock that caused petrification. After establishing trust with Saratha, Harry introduced Luna and Hermione, instructing them to look at the basilisk only through reflection and only briefly. Even this indirect exposure was enough to shatter several control layers instantly, causing both girls to gasp as their magical perception expanded dramatically. The colors, Luna whispered, tears streaming down her face. I can see properly now. Hermione's reaction was more analytical but no less profound. The magical theory, it's all connected differently than we've been taught. Everything makes sense when viewed from this perspective. Harry smiled, feeling vindicated. This is what they've been hiding, our true magical potential. Before leaving, they established a crucial agreement with Saratha: the basilisk would remain hidden until they retrieved the diary, preventing premature activation of Riddle's plan. In return, Harry would bring trusted resistance members for controlled exposure to awakening. We'll create a graduated system, Harry explained as they climbed back toward the entrance. Using my Sharingan to filter different levels of revelation based on individual readiness. The first years should receive minimal exposure, Hermione suggested practically. Just enough to break dependency conditioning without overwhelming them. While 7th years can handle fuller awakening, Luna added. They'll be leaving Hogwarts soon anyway, carrying awareness into the broader world. Harry nodded, pleased with their strategic thinking. We'll start with our core group, then expand carefully. Over the next 2 weeks, the Resistance implemented their chamber access plan. Small groups descended under cover of Harry's increasingly sophisticated illusion manipulations, receiving calibrated exposure to Saratha's knowledge transfer. Each awakened student returned changed, more magically capable, less susceptible to controlling influences, and increasingly committed to breaking the system entirely. Harry carefully monitored these transformations, ensuring no one advanced too quickly or attracted unwanted attention. Meanwhile, Ginny Weasley's condition deteriorated as the diary's influence strengthened. Dark shadows formed under her eyes, her classroom performance became erratic, and monitoring charms placed by the twins revealed she was experiencing missing time, periods she couldn't account for afterward. We need to retrieve the diary soon, Harry told the core group during an emergency meeting. Riddle's fragment is accelerating his takeover. Direct confrontation might push him to full possession, Hermione warned. And we still don't know exactly what commands he'll give Saratha. Actually, we do, Luna interjected, her post-awakening perceptions providing unique insights. The castle's memory contains echoes of the last chamber opening 50 years ago. Riddle will command attacks on Muggleborns, believing they're unworthy of magic. A perfect reinforcement of the illusion system's blood status component, Harry noted grimly. Layer 10 functioning as designed. Draco, who had undergone partial awakening, provided additional context. Father believes releasing the basilisk will trigger purification protocols embedded in the school's founding magic. He's completely misinterpreted Slytherin's intentions, seeing blood purism where there was actually magical preservation. They formulated a careful extraction plan. Rather than confronting Ginny directly, they would use Fred and George's knowledge of secret passages to intercept her during one of her diary-influenced wanderings. Harry would then use his Sharingan to temporarily disrupt Riddle's control long enough to separate her from the diary. Implementation came sooner than expected. That very night, the twins' monitoring charms alerted them to Ginny leaving Gryffindor Tower in a trance-like state. Harry mobilized immediately, intercepting her in a secluded corridor with Hermione and the twins as backup. "She's deeply entranced," Harry observed through his Sharingan. "Riddle's control threads are nearly solid. Can you break them?" Fred asked worriedly, seeing his sister's blank expression. Temporarily, Harry confirmed, activating his evolved Sharingan fully. With precise chakra control, he sent a disrupting pulse through the diary's influence pattern. Ginny gasped, her eyes clearing momentarily as the possession weakened. The twins moved instantly, gently restraining her while Hermione located and removed the diary from her robes. "No!" Ginny cried, suddenly lucid and reaching desperately for the book. "Give it back. He needs me." Compulsion effects still active, Harry noted, maintaining his disruptive field. "We need to get her to the chamber immediately for Saratha to purge the remaining influence." They moved swiftly through secret passages, supporting the now struggling Ginny. Upon reaching Myrtle's bathroom, they were met by Luna, Neville, and surprisingly, Draco. Monitoring charms detected increased activity, Draco explained tersely. "Dumbledore's returning early from his conference. We have maybe 30 minutes before he arrives." Harry made a split-second decision. Change of plans. "We take Ginny and the diary to the chamber now. Saratha can purge Riddle's influence from her mind while I contain the diary." The expanded group descended into the chamber, where Saratha awaited them. The basilisk, now understanding its role in the resistance, carefully modulated its gaze to break only the specific control threads binding Ginny to the diary. The fragment fights strongly, Saratha observed as Ginny convulsed during the purging process. "It has integrated deeply with her life force." Harry examined the diary with his Sharingan, seeing how it pulsed with malevolent energy, attempting to re-establish connection with Ginny. The Horcrux was more powerful than he'd anticipated, a direct confrontation would be dangerous. "We need to contain it properly before Dumbledore arrives," Harry told the others. "And I need to examine exactly what Riddle knows about the chamber's true purpose." Making a calculated risk assessment, Harry opened the diary and channeled his Sharingan's power directly into it, initiating controlled contact with the soul fragment. The world blurred around him as he was pulled into a memory landscape, a Hogwarts from 50 years earlier, yet still recognizable. A handsome teenage boy waited for him, surprise evident on his aristocratic features. "You're not the Weasley girl," Tom Riddle stated, studying Harry with intense interest. "And those eyes, how fascinating." "Hello, Tom," Harry replied calmly, maintaining his Sharingan's connection to his physical body. "Or should I call you Voldemort?" Riddle's expression darkened. "That name comes later. But you shouldn't know it at all, especially with those eyes. The Sharingan were purged from Britain generations ago, Dumbledore's predecessor made certain of that." This confirmed another piece of the historical puzzle. "Because they could see through the illusions," Harry suggested. "Precisely." Riddle circled Harry like a predator. "I discovered the control system accidentally, you know. Found references in books that should have been destroyed, connections that didn't quite make sense. When I tried discussing them with professors, I'd find my memories altered afterward." "So you created Horcruxes to anchor yourself outside the system," Harry noted. "But you misunderstood the chamber's purpose." Riddle laughed coldly. "Did I? Slytherin built it to preserve true magic against degradation. Eliminating Muggle influence was clearly his intention." "You're confusing effect with cause," Harry countered. "The illusion system made you interpret preservation of original magic as blood purism. Layer 10 functioning perfectly." Something flickered in Riddle's eyes, doubt, perhaps. "You seem remarkably well informed for someone so young." "I've had help," Harry replied, feeling the diary's attempt to drain his energy and countering it with the stone's absorbed power. Including from your future self's confrontation over the Philosopher's Stone. This visibly shook Riddle. My future self, failed. Multiple times, Harry confirmed. Because you're fighting the wrong enemy. Dumbledore didn't create the illusion system, he inherited and expanded it, just as his predecessors did. The true opposition isn't Muggleborns or even Dumbledore himself, but the system that controls everyone. As Harry shared selected information about the 42 Genjutsu layers, he observed Riddle's reactions carefully. This Horcrux had been created when Voldemort was still developing his understanding, before his complete break from Dumbledore's influence but after discovering parts of the truth. An interesting perspective, Riddle admitted finally. But ultimately irrelevant to my immediate goals. I need life force to regenerate, and I will have it, from you, if not from the girl. The memory landscape darkened as Riddle exerted his will, attempting to trap Harry within the diary. But Harry had anticipated this move, using his Sharingan's connection to his physical body as an anchor. You misunderstand my purpose here, Tom, Harry said calmly. I didn't enter your diary to negotiate, but to confirm what you know, and what you don't. With that, Harry channeled a massive surge of the stone's power through his Sharingan directly into the diary's internal structure, disrupting Riddle's control of the memory landscape. As the construct began collapsing, Harry pulled himself back to physical reality. He gasped, finding himself still in the chamber with the diary smoking in his hands. The Horcrux wasn't destroyed, but it was temporarily subdued, its connection to Ginny completely severed and its ability to possess significantly weakened. We need to contain this properly, Harry told his concerned friends. And we're running out of time before Dumbledore returns. Fred checked his enchanted watch. 15 minutes, max. Harry turned to Saratha. Can you provide a scale for a containment vessel? He requested in Parseltongue. The basilisk obliged, shedding a small scale that Harry incorporated into a makeshift container for the diary, using his Sharingan to weave binding charms derived from his growing understanding of the illusion system structure. This will hold it temporarily, he explained, pocketing the contained diary. But we need a permanent solution that doesn't alert Dumbledore to our activities. Ginny, now free from the diary's influence, remained unconscious but stable. Luna monitored her condition, confirming the possession effects were receding. We should return to the surface, Hermione urged. Establish our cover story before Dumbledore's arrival triggers full surveillance restoration. As they prepared to leave, a phoenix's cry echoed through the chamber. Harry activated his Sharingan instantly, detecting a powerful magical signature approaching rapidly. Too late, he warned. Dumbledore's already here. Fawkes the Phoenix soared into the chamber, circling once before landing near the entrance. The bird regarded them curiously, head tilted in apparent confusion at finding not a confrontation but a cooperative group from multiple houses surrounding an unconscious Gryffindor. His familiar, Hermione whispered. But where's? The question answered itself as Albus Dumbledore stepped into the chamber, blue eyes taking in the scene with calculated sharpness belying his grandfatherly appearance. The twinkling benevolence had vanished, replaced by focused intensity. Fascinating, Dumbledore said softly, wand already in hand. I return early from an urgent summons to find my monitoring charms disabled and multiple students from different houses gathered in a location that supposedly doesn't exist. Harry stepped forward, positioning himself between his friends and the headmaster. Professor Dumbledore. We can explain Ginny's condition. I'm certain you can, Harry. Dumbledore's gaze swept over the group, lingering momentarily on each face. Though I'm more interested in how you accessed this chamber, and why Mr. Malfoy stands alongside Gryffindors and Ravenclaws in apparent cooperation. Through his Sharingan, Harry observed Dumbledore's magical signature pulsing with controlled power. The headmaster was channeling enormous energy into the illusion system, actively reinforcing threads that had begun fraying throughout the castle. Ginny was possessed by a dark artifact, Harry explained truthfully but selectively. We tracked her here and removed its influence. Most commendable, Dumbledore replied, his tone pleasant but his magic increasingly oppressive as he strengthened the chamber's previously weakened control threads. And the artifact in question? Harry felt the diary vibrate in his pocket as it responded to Dumbledore's power. A decision point had arrived sooner than anticipated, direct confrontation versus continued deception. Reading Harry's hesitation, Hermione stepped forward. It was a diary, Headmaster. It appeared to contain a memory fragment that could possess the writer. I see. Dumbledore's expression remained genial, but his eyes hardened. And rather than bringing such a concerning item to the staff, you chose to handle it yourselves, in the legendary Chamber of Secrets, no less. The control threads throughout the chamber continued strengthening as Dumbledore exerted his will, the illusion system actively responding to his presence. Harry could feel the awakening his friends had experienced beginning to recede under this renewed pressure. A critical threshold approached, either they would lose their progress, or they needed to act decisively. Harry made his choice. We know about the 42 layers, Headmaster, he said clearly, activating his Sharingan fully and dropping all pretense. We know about the illusion system controlling the entire wizarding world. Dumbledore went absolutely still, his grandfatherly mask slipping completely as his magic flared in response to this direct challenge. Harry, he said softly, dangerously, you've been meddling with forces you cannot possibly understand. That's where you're wrong, Harry replied, channeling power through his evolved Sharingan. We understand perfectly. The artificial limitations on magic. The false narratives about Voldemort. The suppression of wandless abilities. The deliberate divisions between magical beings. As Harry spoke, he subtly signaled his friends to positions they had practiced for this eventual confrontation. The twins moved to protect Ginny, Hermione and Luna began channeling their awakened magic to strengthen the chamber's natural resistance to outside control, while Neville and Draco took flanking positions. You misunderstand my intentions, Dumbledore said, his voice heavy with apparent regret while his magic told a different story. The controls exist to prevent catastrophe. Unrestricted magic nearly destroyed our world once before. Or that's what the system wants everyone to believe, Harry countered, carefully maintaining eye contact. The real history was overwritten by Layer 22, wasn't it? The truth is that powerful wizards feared losing control, so they systematically limited everyone's magical potential while exempting themselves. Dumbledore's expression darkened. And you believe dismantling these protections will lead to anything but chaos? Every restriction exists for good reason, Harry. Some doors should remain closed. He speaks half-truths, Sarah the hissed from behind Slytherin's statue, remaining partially concealed. His fear is genuine, but his control is not protection, it is imprisonment. Harry didn't translate this directly, instead maintaining focus on Dumbledore while his friends implemented their emergency protocol. Luna and Hermione had completed a partial barrier using awakened magic, isolating the chamber from Dumbledore's full control temporarily. We're not seeking destruction, Harry said firmly. We want liberation, controlled dissolution of artificial limitations that have suppressed magical potential for generations. Noble sentiments from children who cannot comprehend the consequences. Dumbledore raised his wand, not aggressively but with clear intent. I cannot permit this to continue. The system must be maintained for the greater good. Those final words triggered the trap Harry had prepared. When Dumbledore uttered his famous phrase, the greater good, it activated a specific magical sequence Harry had discovered within the stone's absorbed knowledge. That was Grindelwald's catchphrase before it was yours, Harry noted. Your system has more in common with his vision than you admit. Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly at this unexpected connection. In that moment of surprise, Harry channeled massive power through his Sharingan directly into the chamber's foundational magic, activating Salazar's original protective enchantments. The chamber responded instantly. Ancient runes carved into the stone columns illuminated with brilliant green light, creating a cascading network of energy that temporarily neutralized all 42 control layers within the chamber completely. Dumbledore staggered as his connection to the illusion system was abruptly severed within this space. For perhaps the first time in decades, the headmaster stood without the augmentation of his carefully constructed control network. "What have you done?" he demanded, genuine alarm replacing his controlled demeanor. "Created a level playing field," Harry replied, as his friends moved into their final positions, forming a 7-pointed pattern around Dumbledore. "This is Salazar's true legacy, a sanctuary where magic flows without artificial constraint." The Resistance members began channeling their awakened magic in the pattern they had practiced, creating a containment field around Dumbledore that mirrored the illusion system's own structure, a deliberate irony not lost on the headmaster. "You cannot hope to maintain this," Dumbledore warned, attempting countermeasures that functioned poorly without his system's support. "The consequences will extend far beyond Hogwarts." "That's exactly what we're counting on," Harry confirmed, stepping forward with his Sharingan blazing. "The illusion system has been fracturing for months. Tonight, we accelerate that process." With precise coordination, the Resistance members channeled their combined power through Harry, who used his Sharingan to create a specialized version of Saratha's gaze effect, not to break all illusions at once, but to specifically target Dumbledore's personal connection to the system. The headmaster fought back with impressive raw power, demonstrating why he was considered the greatest wizard of the age even without his control system. Spells of incredible complexity flowed from his wand, attempting to disrupt their containment pattern. But Dumbledore faced something he hadn't anticipated: students using unrestricted magic, operating outside the limitations he had helped impose for decades. Their spells didn't follow standard patterns or require traditional incantations. They channeled intent directly, just as magic had functioned before the illusion system. The battle intensified as Dumbledore realized the true threat. This wasn't merely student rebellion, it was systematic dismantling of control structures that had maintained stability for generations. "You don't understand what you're unleashing," Dumbledore shouted, abandoning his usual composure as he fought with increasing desperation. "The system prevents the stronger from dominating the weaker. It maintains balance. It maintains stagnation." Harry countered, pressing his advantage. "It prevents magical evolution and preserves power imbalances." As they clashed, the chamber itself seemed to awaken further, responding to the surge of unrestricted magic. The castle above trembled slightly, sensing the disruption to its foundational enchantments. Saratha emerged fully from hiding, positioning herself behind Harry. Through their connection, the basilisk added its ancient knowledge to Harry's Sharingan projection, creating an unprecedented magical effect: targeted illusion dissolution. Dumbledore recognized the danger too late. The combined power of Harry's Sharingan, the Resistance Circle, and Saratha's gaze struck him directly, not harming him physically, but severing his deep integration with the illusion system he had spent decades enhancing. The headmaster collapsed to his knees, looking suddenly older and more frail as control threads that had extended from his magical core for over 50 years dissolved. For the first time since defeating Grindelwald, Albus Dumbledore experienced reality without filtering it through his carefully constructed illusions. "What have you done to me?" he whispered, genuine fear in his voice. "Freed you," Harry answered simply. "Just as we intend to free everyone else." With Dumbledore temporarily neutralized, Harry turned to the final phase of their plan. Using the chamber's awakened magic combined with his Sharingan's unique properties, he created a cascading effect that traveled upward through the castle's foundation stones. Throughout Hogwarts, students and staff experienced a sudden shift in perception, not a complete breaking of all illusions, which would have been overwhelming, but a strategic weakening of specific control layers. Layer 3's wand dependency loosened. Layer 5's house division enforcement faltered. Layer 7's wandless suppression fractured. The castle itself seemed to sigh with relief as artificial limitations that had constrained its magic for centuries began dissolving. Ghosts throughout the building became more solid, house elves stood straighter, and paintings portrayed their subjects more accurately. In the chamber, Dumbledore watched with a mixture of horror and dawning comprehension as Harry manipulated the illusion system with greater skill than should have been possible for a 12-year-old. "The stone," Dumbledore realized. "You absorbed its power before destroying it." Harry nodded. Just enough to understand the system from the inside. The Philosopher's Stone wasn't about immortality or gold, it was a control node for the illusion network. You cannot possibly manage the consequences of this action, Dumbledore warned, struggling to rise. Without structured limitations, magical power disparities will create chaos. The strong will dominate. Or cooperation will flourish without artificial divisions, Hermione countered, maintaining her position in the containment circle. Your system didn't eliminate power imbalances, it institutionalized them. Luna added dreamily, the castle remembers its original purpose. It wants to teach true magic again, not the constrained version. Dumbledore looked at each of them in turn, his expression shifting from opposition to something more complex, perhaps the beginning of doubt about his life's work. You truly believe you're doing the right thing, he said finally. Just as I did when I expanded the system after defeating Grindelwald. I saw the destruction unrestricted magic could cause in our duel. The system predates you both, Harry noted. But you had a choice when you discovered it, dismantle it or enhance it. You chose control over freedom. Before Dumbledore could respond, the cascading effect reached critical mass. Throughout Hogwarts and beyond, the 42-layered illusion system developed fracture points that the automated repair mechanisms couldn't address without Dumbledore's direct input. The headmaster sensed this shift and closed his eyes in resignation. It's too late to reverse this, isn't it? The system was already failing, Harry confirmed. We've just accelerated the inevitable. In a final, unexpected move, Fawkes, who had observed the confrontation silently, flew to Dumbledore's shoulder and trilled a phoenix song that carried neither judgment nor absolution, but something like understanding. The ancient wizard looked at his familiar, then back at Harry and his friends. If I cannot stop this, perhaps I can still help manage the transition. Uncontrolled dissolution will be catastrophic. This offer, while potentially strategic on Dumbledore's part, also revealed genuine concern. Despite everything, he truly believed his system protected people, even if that protection came at the cost of their full potential. That's why we're not breaking all 42 layers at once, Harry explained, relaxing his aggressive stance slightly. We're focusing on specific limitations first, those that restrict individual growth rather than those preventing harmful magic. Dumbledore studied him with new awareness. You've planned this more carefully than I assumed. We've had good teachers, Harry replied, glancing at his friends. Each contributing different perspectives on how to balance freedom with safety. As the immediate confrontation de-escalated, they reached an unexpected temporary truce. Dumbledore, recognizing he could not reverse the cascade without potentially causing more damage, agreed to help manage the transition if they proceeded gradually rather than completely. The Ministry will react with fear, he warned. Fudge particularly will see this as a power grab. Let them come, Fred said confidently. They'll find Hogwarts less compliant than expected, George added. Indeed, throughout the castle, students and staff were already experiencing the first effects of partial awakening. In dormitories, common rooms, and corridors, people discovered abilities they hadn't known they possessed. Simple wandless magic manifested spontaneously. House rivalries weakened as artificial animosity programming faltered. Most importantly, questions long suppressed by the illusion system suddenly seemed obvious. Why did certain spells require specific words? Why couldn't magical beings fully integrate into wizarding society? Why had magical innovation stagnated for centuries? As dawn approached, Harry stood at the chamber entrance with his friends, watching Dumbledore being escorted by Fawkes back to his office. The headmaster had aged visibly during their confrontation, the strain of operating without his illusion support taking physical toll. This is just the beginning, Hermione noted, watching the cascade effects spreading through her enhanced magical perception. The system extends beyond Hogwarts, throughout magical Britain and beyond. And now has no central controller, Harry added. Dumbledore was the linchpin holding everything together. Without him, the 42 layers will continue weakening naturally. Neville, whose magical potential had flourished since his controlled exposure to Saratha's gaze, looked toward the rising sun visible from the castle windows above. My parents might recover now. If the specific bindings placed on them weaken like the general system. The entire wizarding world is about to change, Luna said serenely. Not everyone will welcome liberation. Some prefer comfortable chains to uncertain freedom. Harry nodded soberly, aware of the challenges ahead. The fracturing of Dumbledore's grand illusion represented not an end but a beginning, the start of a complex transition that would require careful management. As they emerged from the chamber, they found Hogwarts transformed. Students wandered corridors with expressions of confusion and wonder, discovering capabilities previously suppressed. Professors attempted to maintain order while grappling with their own expanded awareness. Most telling was the castle itself. Hogwarts practically hummed with awakened magic, architectural features long hidden by illusion layers gradually becoming visible. Moving staircases operated with newfound purpose rather than random movement. Dormant enchantments activated throughout the structure. We should establish information centers in each common room, Hermione suggested practically. Help people understand what they're experiencing. And prevent panic, Draco added, surprising himself with genuine concern for the general welfare. Father and his associates will attempt to exploit this situation if we don't manage the narrative. Harry agreed, already planning next steps. We've fractured the illusions, but dismantling them completely requires sustained effort. And we still have Riddle's diary to deal with. As if summoned by this mention, a magical pulse surged through the castle, not from their actions, but from beyond Hogwarts' boundaries. Harry activated his Sharingan, tracing the disturbance to its source. The Ministry, he realized. They've detected the system disruption. They're implementing emergency containment protocols. Through his enhanced perception, Harry could see new control threads attempting to establish themselves around Hogwarts, crude but powerful replacements for Dumbledore's subtle weaving. Minister Fudge, acting from the Ministry in London, had activated contingency measures designed for situations exactly like this. They're trying to reimpose control, Hermione observed, sensing the pressure against their newly won freedom. Too late, Luna said with uncharacteristic firmness. The castle has awakened. It remembers its true purpose now. As if confirming her words, Hogwarts' ancient protective enchantments activated fully for perhaps the first time in centuries. The castle responded to the Ministry's attempted control by raising defenses that predated the illusion system itself, magic from the Founder's era, designed to preserve Hogwarts' independence. Outside the main entrance, Ministry officials who had apparat to the boundaries found themselves unable to approach further. Aurors attempting to enter through Fluk connections were gently but firmly redirected to the 3 broomsticks in Hogsmeade. Within the castle, students and staff increasingly divided into 3 main groups, those embracing awakening with enthusiasm, those cautiously exploring their expanded awareness, and those resistant to change, clinging to the familiar limitations of the old system. This third group, unsurprisingly, included many with vested interests in maintaining the status quo. Certain professors, prefects, and students from traditionally powerful families resisted the dissolution of control layers that had preserved their advantageous positions. By evening, battle lines had been drawn. The Ministry established a perimeter around Hogwarts, declaring an educational emergency requiring intervention. Meanwhile, awakened students organized across house lines, sharing discoveries and techniques previously hidden by the illusion system. In the headmaster's office, Dumbledore sat across from Harry and the core resistance members, looking both diminished and somehow freed from a burden he had carried too long. Minister Fudge has issued an ultimatum, he informed them, gesturing to a Ministry owl that had managed to penetrate the castle's defenses. Either I re-establish proper educational controls by tomorrow noon, or he will authorize forced entry under Article 7 of the Educational Decrees. Can he do that? Neville asked. Normally, yes, Dumbledore replied. But Hogwarts in its awakened state may not recognize Ministry authority. The Founders established the school specifically to operate independently from governmental control. Harry studied the headmaster carefully through his Sharingan. Dumbledore's integration with the illusion system had been severely damaged but not completely severed. Threads of control still connected him to the broader network, though they functioned imperfectly. "You still believe some control is necessary," Harry observed. "Despite everything you've seen today." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "I have witnessed what completely unrestricted magic can do, Harry. During my duel with Grindelwald, we both tapped into forces that should remain contained. The devastation was considerable. But that's about specific dangerous applications," Hermione argued. "Not basic capabilities like wandless magic or unfiltered magical perception. The line between liberation and chaos is thinner than you imagine," Dumbledore countered gently. "I expanded the system not from desire for control itself, but from genuine fear of what unrestricted power in undisciplined hands might unleash." This perspective, while still opposed to their goals, contained enough truth to merit consideration. The resistance had focused on breaking control layers, but perhaps less attention had been given to what would replace them. "We need a transition framework," Harry realized. "Not new controls, but guidance structures to help people adjust to expanded capabilities." Luna, whose unique perception had only grown more refined since the chamber confrontation, suggested softly, "The castle itself could provide that framework. Hogwarts was designed to teach proper magical application, not just technical spellcasting." This insight sparked an idea. Harry turned to Dumbledore with unexpected respect. "You understand the system better than anyone. Help us design a transition that preserves safety without maintaining artificial limitations." The headmaster regarded Harry with surprise that shifted to thoughtful consideration. "You're offering cooperation rather than conquest. Interesting. This was never about destroying," Harry clarified. "It's about rebuilding something better." As night fell over Hogwarts, an extraordinary council formed in the Great Hall, representatives from all houses, including both awakened and resistant students, along with staff members and even house elves and ghosts. Under Harry's guidance, they began formulating a response to the Ministry's ultimatum and a framework for managing the transition away from illusion control. Outside the castle boundaries, Ministry forces continued gathering. Inside, fractured illusions gave way to new possibilities as Hogwarts remembered its original purpose, not just as a school of limited magic, but as a sanctuary for magical evolution and growth. The battle for the wizarding world's future had only just begun, but the first critical victory had been achieved. The Grand Illusion, maintained for centuries and expanded by Dumbledore into 42 controlling layers, had fractured beyond repair. What would emerge from those fractures remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. As Harry stood before the assembled council, his Sharingan active and his purpose clear, he felt his mother's legacy fulfilled and a new chapter beginning. The boy with the crimson eyes had seen through Dumbledore's deception, awakened the ancient guardian, and begun dismantling the control system that had limited magical potential for generations. The illusions had fractured. Liberation had begun. And somewhere beyond Hogwarts' boundaries, other players watched with interest, some with hope, others with calculation, and a few with growing fear of a world where magic flowed freely once more. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.